Keyblades, the iconic weapons at the center of the Kingdom Hearts universe, and a grander gaming icon to boot. It's quite the simple concept. What if a sword was also a key? That simplicity has allowed these things to be continuously iterated on throughout the series to a point where there are now well over 100 distinct Keyblade designs. So, that begs the question, which ones are the worst and the best? In order to answer that question, I put out a survey asking you all to vote for your 5 favorite Keyblades, and today I will be presenting the results of that survey, a full popularity ranking of every Keyblade in the series. And then some. This idea and video format was inspired by regular Pat's series of videos tackling the characters, worlds, and battles of Kingdom Hearts, which you should all watch because they're great. When I approached him about doing a similar thing for Keyblades, he was both kind enough to let me take it on, and to go out of his way to share the survey to his incredible audience of Kingdom Hearts fans. So thank you, Pat, for making this video possible. If I had a nickel for every time I made an honorary Part 4 to one of Pat's survey-based video series. We managed to get over 1,200 submissions, and thus just over 6,000 individual votes for Keyblades, which is amazing, and I thank every single one of you who voted. Hell, even if you didn't vote, thanks for being here and watching. The survey itself had a bit of a mixed format. I wanted to streamline the data collection a bit, and thanks to Melody of Memory, I had a pretty definitive list of every Keyblade in the series, so I primarily took submissions through a drop-down featuring those 138 Keyblades. Well, 125 were from Melody of Memory. I threw in an extra 13 that would have been weird to exclude. But between edge cases, Keyblade adjacent weapons, and other things I just didn't think of, it felt wrong not to give some freedom for voters to include weird stuff. So the 5th option on the survey was a write-in with no restrictions whatsoever. Ultimately, I'm very happy with how the results panned out. Tomfoolery was kept to a minimum, but the write-in allowed for a lot of interesting and clever submissions that I'm glad we'll get to talk about. So, let's see that Keyblade. For starters, there wasn't a single Keyblade that didn't get any votes. I am of two minds on this. On one hand, I think it's genuinely impressive how consistently well designed these things are, that every single possible candidate got at least one person shooting for it. On the other hand, man, it would have been really funny to have a definitive last place. But I suppose I'll just have to settle for dubbing the last Keyblade to get a vote as our honorary last place. It took 1,159 submissions for Elemental Encoder to finally get some love. For those who don't know, this Keyblade is exclusive to the Epic Game Store release of Kingdom Hearts 3. So is it really a surprise that it did so poorly? The fans have spoken, a clear and unquestionable rejection of Epic Games. I've never had the displeasure of interacting with the storefront, and it sounds like I'm not missing much. The blade itself is nothing remarkable. Like the other new console-exclusive Keyblades, it's just a reskin of Star Cluster. This one in particular really gets lost in the shuffle since it's just black and white. A boring design for a Keyblade exclusive to a version of the game no one wants to play. And yet, I still understand why someone might have voted for it. After all, the Epic Games release of KH3, and thus this Keyblade, represent the series' first appearance on PC. Sure, for a time it was a bit of a monkey's paw moment, but I'm not surprised that at least one voter remembers that time fondly. We've got 3 more real Keyblades here before we get to the nonsense, though I'm sure many voters wouldn't even consider these next 2 real since they come from Days. Unsurprisingly, the 22DS exclusive Keyblades were some of the worst performers, and perhaps their way of expressing their disappointment is by leading with Pain of Solitude. I'm gonna be perfectly real with y'all, I have very little to say about these things. There are a couple interesting ones in the upper half of the ranking, but most of these are fairly generic and forgettable blades with abhorrently edgy names. Pain of Solitude, they really thought they cooked with that one. There are like 5 that do this blank of blank naming convention, and I think they're all so cringy. The other Days blade in the single voter club is Silent Dirge, which, like Elemental Encoder, was one of the last Keyblades to get a vote. In honor of this Keyblade's dumb edgy name, I'm gonna silence myself and just move on. So the final Keyblade from my main list to only get 1 vote is Ferris Gear. I mean, yeah, I can't say I love it. Across the board, Dream Drop Distance blades did pretty poorly, certainly the worst of the big 5KH games. So, among a fairly unpopular set of Keyblades, the most forgotten one was the one that only Sora gets. I understand making 2 different Keyblades for Prankster's Paradise since Sora and Riku explore such drastically different parts of the world, but I think it just served to make both blades stick out even less. Not to mention that Ferris Gear sucks as a Pinocchio-themed Keyblade. This sorta gets into my problem with Sora's Prankster's Paradise as a whole, but they just made it generically amusement park and circus themed when that's not the vibe of Pleasure Island at all. I am not immune to the raw whimsy of the silly little Ferris wheel for the teeth, but I think this one got exactly the amount of votes it deserved. Alright, time for write-ins. Let's get this over with. The opening of Dearly Beloved stabs the voter in the feels every time. Feel like they probably meant to say simple and clean, but either way, not a Keyblade. Eternal Flames, which are Axel's chakrams. At least by the time we get to KH3, these are Keyblade adjacent. The Struggle Bat from KH2, one of those rare player-wielded weapons that isn't a Keyblade, useful for bludgeoning a random selection of Final Fantasy opponents. Genie's Keyblade, which from my understanding is just a facsimile of a Keyblade, it might as well be a random blunt object that Genie conjures up. Cute that the keychain is just his genie tail broken off. Sharpshooter, which is the name of Xigbar's signature weapons. Guess this voter brought a gun to a sword fight. Pure Blood, which according to the voter is from the KH2 randomizer. I can't for the life of me find footage of it anywhere, but I'm pretty sure it looks like this. She owns Keyblades, from her final boss fight in Days. This is the kind of obscure shit that makes me glad I let people write stuff in. Love this fight and all the weird exclusive weapon designs in it. Data Kingdom Key from Recoded. Okay, I'll give this some credit since Data Sora getting his Keyblade destroyed by Maleficent and regaining it is a major plot point, and I could see someone getting attached to this Keyblade because of it. I will not give that same credit to Data, Oathkeeper, and Oblivion, which have no distinguishing features other than being used for specifically the recoded Data Roxas fight. So someone just voted for the Dark Seeker Saga? I don't really know how to make a joke about that, but not a Keyblade. Xehanort's battle quote from KH3 where he screams, "Keyblade!" I'm gonna say the vote's for Christopher Lloyd's version. The voter didn't specify, so my word is law now. Yuzora's Keyblade, or more accurately, the duplicate Keyblade he transforms his sword into when he steals yours, little fucker. If Yuzora becomes playable in any capacity, I want to be able to steal weapons like it's a Kirby game or Mario Odyssey. Light's Order, which is the magic-oriented Keyblade from Missing Link. It's got this oil lamp as the main fixture of the design, which is neat. Ramus's Keyblade, which was briefly shown in a cutscene from the Missing Link beta. It's one of a million fire-themed Keyblades, but this one's special because it was once a canon thing and now it's dead. We've got a KH4 prediction here with Gilgamesh's Excalibur. Glad to see there are still people hopeful for Final Fantasy content out there. Whatever they are doing in that one KH4 trailer, do you just mean the Kingdom Key but with the grapple chain and the big explodey crown move? I'm gonna assume that's what you meant. Amazon Foam Keyblades. Apparently this is a specific thing that you can order and that someone felt the need to vote for. Unfortunately, this is somehow not the last time we're going to talk about Amazon in this video. Clavis Angimon. It's a Digimon that's got a key arm that it presumably attacks with. More of a Clef Key guy, personally. Crappy cosplay Keyblades. I guess all the good ones weren't cool enough to earn this vote. The Keyblade from Deep Woken, which is a Roblox thing. I am forever thankful that I was part of the generation that seemed to just barely miss out on Roblox. Daichi Honglu's Key from a game called Limbus Company. This must be how Pat feels whenever he has to read Danganronpa names. Excalibur. Okay, that's at least a legendary fictional weapon that the average Joe recognizes, and it's Disney related. What a winner. Fart Blade. You know, I could have just chosen not to read the joke answers out loud. I doubt anyone would have thought less of me for it. The Keyblade from a specific Fire Emblem roguelike mod, Embrace of the Fog. I like me some Fire Emblem, but holy shit, what a rabbit hole it was trying to track down an image of this thing. Not worth my time. Fortnite. Doesn't have any Keyblades yet, but probably not for long. Jack Sparrow's Keyblade. Maybe in KH5 this will finally come to fruition. A Katana. No elaboration. I'm gonna assume it's one of Leonardo's. The Key to Disneyland. This at least looks like a Keyblade, and it lights up! Mom, I want one! Keybrand from Terraria. I don't play this game, but I actually knew about this reference, so that's neat. A Kingdom Hearts Key Party. I'm just imagining that tea party from the end of DDD, but with keys. Still wearing the Groucho glasses, though. Lois Lane's Keyblade from The Adventures of Superman. This reference is news to me. Lushu's Secret Second Sword. I mean, I guess we can assume he had a Keyblade before the one the Master of Masters gave him? Otherwise, I can't possibly fathom what we're talking about here. The Master Sword from Zelda. It has crossed paths with the Keyblade, but that's about as close as it's getting to being a relevant entry for this list. Nick30, which is just some Fortnite YouTuber. 2 Fortnite mentions in the Keyblade video. Are we having fun, folks? Paradise Lost, which is a very cool knife from Persona 5. Unlike Fortnite and Roblox, I will take any excuse to talk about Persona 5. Fucking love that game. Check out my Phantom Thief ranking if you haven't. Regular Pat's Stupid Face. Come on, that's not cool. I think we can all agree that Pat deserves way more clever insults than this. Thanks again for your help with the vid, Pat. The Sword of the Paruns, a Magic the Gathering thing. More of a Honedge guy, personally. The Lost Key of Tra-La-La, which is from a DuckTales VR short that I've never heard of before. Well, glad to have learned about that, I guess. Insert DuckTales episode ranking plug. The lyrics to Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer. To be clear, this submission wrote out a bunch of the lyrics, and I'm sparing you from having to hear me sing that for a solid minute. One voter just said their house keys, which is so real. I mean, those things are absolutely the MVP. I'd show you a picture of them, but this voter's privacy is very important to me. Xemnas' Keyblade, which I guess this voter just wishes he had. Wasn't there a Nomura quote that suggested Xemnas just chose not to wield one? I mean, between a Keyblade and dual lightsabers, I'm not exactly surprised by Xemnas' choice here. And finally, the Yadagarasu's Key from Ace Attorney Investigations. This is my favorite joke submission. Move to the next section if you want to avoid Ace Attorney spoilers, but one of the twists of this case is that this key is concealing a knife. So it's a key with a blade. Hell yeah! Alright, on to the blades that got 2 votes. We actually already have our first KH2 Keyblade here. The least popular Keyblade from the most popular game is none other than Follow the Wind. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. It's a pretty forgettable design, and it's competing with another much more popular Pirates Keyblade. I don't know though, I figured more people would have some fondness for this thing if only for its valuable assistance in dealing with Mushroom number 3 in Beast Castle, thanks to its extra draw ability. Well, I guess Follow the Wind makes that mushroom so easy that you forget it ever even happened. Alright, time for another set of Days Keyblades to run through quickly. First up is Ominous Blight. I actually kind of like the name of this one, if only for the word association with Amity Blight from the Owl House. Abaddon Plasma. What the fuck is an Abaddon? Oh, it's a demon from the Bible. Glad to see this Keyblade meeting its edgy quota. It's also a recurring Final Fantasy thing. Midnight Roar, the first of these Days Keyblades we've come across to make a reappearance in the 1.5 version of Recon. It's in Neverland's Room of Rewards. That's all I've got. Last in this set is Glimpse of Darkness. The wiki mentions how this kinda resembles Lexius's weapon, the Sky Splitter. I mean, I guess, but it's a bit of a stretch. Alright, time for the first appearance of Birth by Sleep on the ranking, with 2 Keyblades tied for last place here. First up is Victory Line. Yeah, there are a good handful of Mickey Mouse themed Keyblades, and this is doing nothing to stand out. Not to mention, it's more directly themed to Rumble Racing, possibly the most maligned BBS minigame. And you have to play through every track in order to unlock it, so I wouldn't be surprised if most voters have just never used this. And the other BBS stinker is Mark of a Hero, which is pretty much in the exact same boat as Victory Line. This is the 3rd crack at a Hercules Keyblade, and it does not feel like they really tried. The trophy with the limp little flexing arm just looks so dumb. For the record, the images I'm using of all the BBS Keyblades are Aqua's versions, since hers tend to be the middle-of-the-road option compared to Terra's, which are longer, and Ven's, which are shorter. But yeah, unsurprising and deserved least popular BBS blades. Now we've got a little lineup of DDD blades, starting with Guardian Bell. I think this deserves way more love. It's nothing crazy, but the design sense of this is genuinely cool. I like the Notre Dame architecture making up the blade, I like the gargoyle on top holding the bell that forms the teeth, I like the extra gargoyles on the guard. This is a really solid Hunchback Keyblade. It doesn't go too overboard with any design elements, but has enough strong distinguishing features to help it stand out. It definitely doesn't deserve to be down here with the next couple Dream Drop blades. Like, Guardian Bell is way cooler than Ocean's Rage. What a mess of a Keyblade. I'm honestly surprised this one just barely beat out Ferris Gear. But I suppose when you're this ugly, you stick out in people's minds more. The obvious horror is Monstro's gaping maw as the guard, with presumably his uvula as the handle. Ew, 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 ew. But the rest of the design is also weird and stubby. The key shape kinda gets lost with how the raft is positioned on the water plume. I do like the keychain on this being Cleo's bowl, but the rest of this is a travesty. Rounding out this set of DDD blades is Knockout Punch, one of very few Keyblades to be themed after a Kingdom Hearts original enemy. And they chose the Hako Monkey. Weird. This Keyblade carries with it the coloring problems that Dream Eaters naturally have, and then adds on top of that this weird squiggly fist with a shockwave coming out of it, supposedly forming the teeth of the Keyblade. I guess you could view either the fist or the shockwave as the teeth, which is probably a bad thing, right? Just an unclear and messy design. Though I do like how it pairs with a different DDD blade. On to our first Keyblade from Union Cross, and the audience's least favorite foreteller Keyblade, it's Gula's. Not really what I expected. I don't care too deeply about these blades, but Gula's at least has a very strong identity. It's a Keyblade that's made out of lightning bolts. Yeah, it looks kinda jagged and unpolished, but that works for it. I at least find it far more distinct than like 3 of the other foreteller Keyblades. But distinctiveness doesn't necessarily equate to quality, so I'm not going to get too worked up over it. Alright, the last real Keyblade that got 2 votes is Phantom Green. Yeah, if you were to ask KH fans what their least favorite ways to play KH3 were, Epic Games followed by Xbox is pretty much the consensus. You know, barring the cloud of it all. Interestingly, this one's based on Starseeker, which is a Keyblade that otherwise doesn't appear in KH3 at all, so there's some novelty to that. The green here is pretty understated, especially compared to the main colors of the other console Keyblades. But you've got a fun little detail in the keychain representing the 4 colors of the Xbox controller buttons, so this is unmistakably for the Xbox fans. I don't trust your taste in consoles, but we can still be friends, I guess. Okay, a bit more nonsense to get out of the way. I had one vote for Clayton's gun and another for Clayton's big lizard that I'm consolidating into one grander Clayton entry. Enjoy. Anti-Sora's Kingdom Key, which is the same PNG I used for Pure Blood, just ignore that. I mean, yeah, I don't really know why this wouldn't count as a Keyblade, unless we are to assume this is like Genie's Keyblade and it's just a really convincing copy. But yeah, edgy Kingdom Key, moving on. This is a cool one, the Conductor Wand Kingdom Key. This primarily comes from artwork used to promote the Kingdom Hearts Orchestra World Tour. I believe we first get to see it in a game through Melody of Memory's Battle Report. It's a cute little shrunken down Kingdom Key for Sora to lead the orchestra with. That's adorable. Next, what is possibly the newest official Keyblade on this list, it's the Frankenweenie Keyblade. At least that's what I'm choosing to call it because the Keyblade from the 2025 Nomura Halloween art is a little wordy. Pretty sure this Keyblade only exists because Nomura is not legally allowed to include Nightmare Before Christmas iconography in random art like this without jumping through copyright hurdles. But it sure does look cool, and the little dog on top of it really does look like Frankenweenie. Probably just a coincidence. This is also the first Keyblade on the ranking that was voted for by a VIP voter. Basically just friends of mine who also make cool content. You'll see their little profile pic on the top of the screen for any Keyblades they pick, and the first time they pop up I'll explain who they are and plug their cool shit. The guy who, out of everyone I know, managed to vote for the most obscure possible Keyblade is PJ. I think he's from Cabletown. He's an incredible artist, you can find all his stuff at Cabletown Art on Tumblr or Blue Sky. He also co-hosts a Kingdom Hearts podcast with regular Pat called No Sad Face. Well, co-host is a stretch. It's basically the PJ show and Pat kinda chimes in every now and then. You can find that on YouTube, Spotify, and other podcast places I'm sure. You'll be able to find all the VIP voter links in the description below. Okay, last couple things here. 2 different people independently predicted a lightsaber Keyblade for KH4. I mean, it's not really the most far-fetched idea right now, but still funny to me that 2 people thought to do this. Kirby's Keyblade from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Nomura just couldn't let Sakurai have this one, huh? It doesn't fit with KH lore for Kirby to be able to wield the Keyblade. Oh, shut up and let us have fun. And finally, 2 different voters submitted their original Keyblade designs, which I'm sure is fun for you guys, but I have no feasible way of representing that in this video. So, thanks for taking the survey. This is as much as you get. Onto the 3-vote group. Once again leading with KH2, we have Wishing Lamp. Yeah, much like Follow the Wind, there's just a far more iconic Aladdin Keyblade that this one can't really compete with. This one has more direct iconography from the movie, like the lamp on the hilt and the palace tops in different places, but it's somehow still a much more standard and boring blade. Its jackpot ability is nice, pairing it with some drive converters makes leveling up Master Form easier, but that's the extent of this Keyblade's usefulness. Not to mention that by the time you get this Keyblade at the end of Agrabah's second visit, there's a much more useful blade right around the corner. Next we've got Mysterious Abyss, which I personally like way more than the other Atlantica Keyblade. This basically does the Ocean's Rage concept way better as the water spout more naturally forms the key shape. It's a very sleek aquatic Keyblade that I assume is only this low due to its association with the infamous KH2 Atlantica. You do have to get through Mommy's Poopsies if you want the honor of wielding this blade, and for some that is just too high of a cost. Cowards. But hey, Blizzard Boost is always fun for bullying Data Axle. Okay, another round of Days Blades. Sign of Innocence. You know, what really hurts the memorability of these is that you don't even know the name of the Keyblade unless you go digging around the menus for it. Crown of Guilt. Like, in order to switch Keyblades, you're equipping their associated gear, so you're more likely to recognize the name Phantom Gear or Chrono Gear before the actual Keyblade name. Total Eclipse. Not to mention that most of those gears are just purchased through the shop, so there's no interesting task to associate with unlocking any of the Days Blades. Just a really rough set. Oh, this one was also in Recom. Alright, all that's left for the 3s are some relatively popular write-in responses. First up, we've got the Dream Sword, one of the first weapons ever wielded in Kingdom Hearts. As far as this video goes, it's the only first weapon because the Dream Rod and Dream Shield did not get any votes. I guess Donald and Goofy getting access to them later kinda diminishes their association as the player's weapons. So we're running with the Power of the Warrior. It's a pretty standard sword design with the only real standout feature being the lucky emblem on the hilt. But I doubt anyone voted for this because of its design. It's all about the vibes here. Descending into the dive to the heart as a disembodied voice prompts you to choose your fate at the start of your journey. It's very cool. I should note, I have both KH1 and Days listed as the game for this because technically, while the Dream Sword first appears in KH1, the first time you can freely equip it is in Days where it's Sora's Zero Gear. So just know that anytime there are two games listed, that's usually what it means. Its first appearance and the first time you can freely equip it. Next we have Sora's Keyblade from this specific KH1 development art. Ignoring the obviously more eye-catching fact that Sora is a lion boy, the Keyblade he's holding is neat. It looks like some kind of chainsaw. Hard to tell if the concept of the Keyblade really applies to this weapon since it's not really key-shaped in any way, but it does have a keychain, so maybe they were just working out some kinks. There is concept art of Lion Sora with the Kingdom Key, so clearly this design did not last very long, but it's a cool little piece of KH history. Alright, next is a joint entry covering any time someone submitted one of the Keyblades from the Keyblade graveyard. Two of these votes specified a particular one, namely this one and this one, but it just made more sense for me to lump them all together. Most of these are clearly meant to be named Keyblades that we know about, but rusted and broken, including Wishing Lamp and Follow the Wind, twice, which kind of begs a lot of questions that I do not care to ask right now. But there's no doubt that this vast array of discarded Keyblades is doing numbers for the atmosphere of the Keyblade graveyard, and pretty much makes this place what it is. I'm sure Vanitas and Xehanort greatly appreciate them being there, if only for how cool it makes them look, especially in the KH2 secret ending. Oh, this is the other case where I might list two games. Cause yeah, technically this originates from KH2, but only very briefly, so listing that and its more proper first appearance in BBS just makes sense to me. Oh, and one more point, there's the big Demon Tide sequence from KH3 that on its own probably justifies these blades being even higher in the ranking. The last of the threes, we have the Tower of Radiance and Shadow. This is a real-life Keyblade made for a Kingdom Hearts exhibition held at the Tokyo Skytree. It looks like the Tokyo Skytree. I knew this thing existed before making the form. It's listed with all the other Keyblades on the KH Wiki, but for my drop-down list, I just felt I had to draw the line at things that were actually in Kingdom Hearts games. You now know pretty much everything there is to know about this Keyblade. It's cool that this existed, but I have nothing more to say about it. Only 4 Keyblades got 4 votes, starting with Lunar Eclipse. Okay, so this is just a similarly named palette swap of Total Eclipse. A couple Days Keyblades are sorta just upgrades or downgrades of each other, which is weird since every Days Blade intrinsically has an upgraded form denoted by a plus sign. Yeah, this is dumb, moving on. Next we've got Fairy Stars, the Sleeping Beauty Keyblade. I've never been a huge fan of this thing. Its design is entirely based on the 3 Good Fairies, which is a strong enough base. They are effectively the protagonists of that movie, but the Keyblade feels sort of limited by its own concept. Since it's forced to equally represent all 3 fairy colors, there's no room left for any other distinguishing features. All we get are a couple stars strewn about, which don't really evoke Sleeping Beauty in any way, some fairy wings on the hilt, and the stacked hats as the keychain, which look really awkward. Even the Union Cross upgrade doesn't really know what to do with it. Oh yeah, for any of the Keyblades that appeared in Union Cross, I'll try to point out their upgraded design from that game. But yeah, this Keyblade's core concept just falls flat for me. We've got one more BBS Keyblade down here with Frolic Flame. This was kind of a surprise to me. Most of the non-Disney designs from BBS seem pretty popular. But I suppose Frolic Flame is another Axel Keyblade wedged in between the more popular KH2 and KH3 iterations. Obviously, this one's more specifically designed around Lee, which probably doesn't help its case. Though I'm surprised more people didn't shoot for it if only for the Final Fantasy bomb prominently featured on it. And of course, this Keyblade is easy to associate with the cutscene Memorized where Ven meets Lee and Isa, a very popular scene among regular pad enthusiasts. Which of course includes Kiwi! I don't think Kiwi actually, makes content or anything, but his pics were highlighted in the battle popularity video and I like consistency. I guess check Kiwi out as the co-host of the Kingdom Hearts Hot Takes tournament. I nearly won that shit. No, I'm not salty about it. And the last of the 4s, we have Ira's Keyblade. Now this is the shit I expected to be last among the foreteller Keyblades. Like, what are we doing here? This thing's trying way too hard to be grandiose and just becomes a mess. A forgettable Keyblade for arguably the most forgettable foreteller. Leading the 5s, I'm noticing a pattern of forgettable KH2 Disney Keyblades as we get Hidden Dragon. Yet again, a similar concept to Ocean's Rage, with a dragon head on the hilt breathing fire that forms the blade. It's a solid design for a Mulan Keyblade, but gets outclassed pretty quickly. Getting this blade does mark an important KH2 milestone, finally being able to choose what Keyblade goes on Valor form. What an achievement. Another section, another couple of Days Keyblades to knock out. There is something viscerally appealing about the name Astral Blast. Not often you get alliteration with the ast sound, plus the word astral gives space vibes, which I like. Good color scheme on this one too. I actually really like this Keyblade. Then we have the last of these to appear in Recom, Maverick Flare. I do like how a lot of Days Keyblades go for this general elemental theming. Astral Blast is space, Abaddon Plasma is electric, there are like 5 darkness ones, and Maverick Flare is obviously fire. We'll see more of this as we go along, and I think it's a fun way to distinguish these blades. Next we've got a Dream Drop blade, none other than All for One. Guys, what the fuck? I thought we were supposed to be on the same wavelength. I knew this was a bit of an oddball pick from me, but I'm one of 5 votes? I can't even make a Three Musketeers joke out of that. Not even when including the 4th Musketeer. Well, I guess I'll just have to defend my honor here and explain why this Keyblade's so appealing to me. For starters, I will admit to having a weird attachment to the movie this blade's based on, but beyond that, I just think this Keyblade strikes a really good balance between a clean, simplistic design and enough goofy distinguishing elements for it to stand out. There's nothing crazy going on here. The fleur-de-lis is a natural choice for the teeth, and the color scheme generally evokes the source material. But with a second glance, you'll notice the musketeer hat on the hilt. Okay, kinda silly, but fun. But take a closer look and you'll notice the guard reflecting the blue of the uniforms, and is that a little collar on the handle? It's a really simplified musketeer outfit that's adorable, silly, and doesn't interfere with the sleekness of the design at all. To top it off, you get the 3 swords coming together as the keychain. A little busy for such a small token, but I don't mind it. This thing just ticks all the right boxes for me. We're not done with DDD yet. Next up is Sweet Dreams, my favorite song from Sonic 06. You get this as a reward for completing every match in Flick Rush, as affirmed by the gold trophy. I view this Keyblade as a counterpart to Knockout Punch. They're both Dream Eater blades, with one themed to nightmares and the other to spirits. That little bit of cohesion makes me like these blades just a little more than I otherwise would. There's also a prominent food theme here between the Ghostabaki on the guard and the cake on the hilt. I suppose that explains why the chef among us voted for it. Chef Sippy Soup, or Cosmic Citrus on YouTube, makes incredible videos where they sculpt a bunch of fun models based on Kingdom Hearts, Pokemon, Deltarune, Silksong, and more. Go check them out. Last entry for this section, we've got a surprisingly popular write-in with... Regular Key. This is a KH3 mod made by Lucisphere that's in reference to Regular Path's playthrough of KH1, where he beat the game using only his feet. 5 people thought to vote for this. I'd love to just end the section there, but unfortunately one of those 5 people is 2C Phoenix. I hope you're happy that your shoutout is forever associated with this Keyblade. 2C Phoenix is the brilliant mind behind the Game Breakdown series here on YouTube, where he meticulously combs through his favorite games world by world and talks about any conceivable thing there is to talk about. These games have included Super Mario Sunshine, Sly 2 and 3, and he's currently finishing up the first Kingdom Hearts. If you're a fan of any of those games, you owe it to yourself to check out Phoenix's channel. On to the 6 vote group, we have Treasure Trove. That's a shame, I think this one's fun. The jagged minecart tracks forming the blade, the pickaxe as the teeth, a myriad of gemstones peppered throughout. It's a fun design. I even like the gold embellishment of the Union Cross upgrade. I guess it's a bit weird that it's so heavily based on the dwarf mine, since Ven is the only one of the 3 to have access to that room. But it's also one of the most aesthetically distinct parts of Dwarf Woodlands, so I get it. Next is Hyperdrive. Okay, I guess I shouldn't have made fun of the KH2 Disney Keyblades because the BBS ones are really striking out here. But I quite like this design too. Fun to have the swirling exhaust from the ship form the blade. The colors on this one really pop between the blue flames, red ship, and green plasma. It's very striking and appealing. If I have any problem with this one, it's that it's so strictly space themed, but that extends to Deep Space as a whole. Where's my Ohana, damn it? We've got our first player-wielded Union Crossblade here with Bad Guy Breaker. You know, if this was in any other game, I think it'd be looked at a lot more fondly. But then again, part of what makes this Keyblade so appealing are the different upgrades it gets, which only exist because it's in Union Cross. Each upgrade adds design elements from a different Wreck-It Ralph world. You start out with this relatively basic Niceland design, which works well for what it is. Then you get this Hero's Duty look utilizing the giant tower. And finally, you end on the Sugar Rush version covered in chocolate, ice cream, and race decorations. Oh, and my favorite little detail. The keychain transforms from the hero's duty medal to Vanellope's cookie medal she made for Ralph. That is so sweet and such a perfect way to depict the arc of the movie through the Keyblade transformation. I don't think any other Disney Keyblade in the series even comes close to representing the source material this well. If this thing makes it into some kind of console version of Union Cross, I think it would shoot way up in this ranking. Now we finally get to our first KH3 Disney Keyblade, Hero's Origin. Since our last two KH3 entries were both console exclusives, I kinda consider this the true least favorite KH3 blade. And yeah, I think we're all a little tired of Hercules. This definitely stands out among them with the well-defined and eye-catching Zeus, but those pecs can only carry so much. At least it beat Mark of a Hero. Oh, and Counter Shield is a fun form change if you care to try blocking. Next we have the Keyblade? Oh, the incomplete version from the end event story in BBS. Originally, I was just gonna count these as votes for the ordinary Keyblade, but I don't know, 6 different people specified this version. It felt significant enough to separate. I imagine the appeal here is its place in that final Vanitas fight, the clash for control of Vent's heart. Though that means this Keyblade is responsible for that horrendous Vanitas D-Link sequence. Otherwise, it's cool to see this sort of half-formed and corrupted version of such an important weapon. You don't get another good look at this thing until the end of Aqua's story, so there's a bit of build-up to actually seeing the Keyblade in its full glory. Also, one of the Kingdom Key handles on this is broken, and I just think that's so cursed. Breaking the Kingdom Key should be illegal. On to the 7s with Abyssal Tide. That's a water-type name if I've ever heard one. It has the same shape as Astral Blast, which is funny since water and space are the two sorta elemental aesthetics I vibe with the most. Also in this group is Twilight Blades. I guess Days needed 2 Fire Blades. This one's equipped through the Ultimate Gear, which reads to me as a very late game thing. So that's cool. Yeah, I still don't really have much to say about Days Blades yet. Next we have Unbound, a criminally underrated Keyblade. I think people who haven't engaged with Dream Drop's post-game don't understand how relatively easy and fun it is to get this specific blade. You just have to do the story boss rematches in each world, and as a reward you get the strongest physical Keyblade in the game. It shares a keychain with Royal Radiance from BBS, and I think it fills that same niche of a side game blade to surpass Ultima weapon in stats. It also looks really cool. I'm a sucker for purple and blue gradients. The teeth with the big green curve and smaller pink curve do evoke the HP bar and drop gauge, which is a fun detail. I like this one a lot. Back to the KH3 console exclusives, it's Midnight Blue. I feel like this one's pretty standard, but it's one of the firsts and most KH fans grew up playing everything on PlayStation, so I get the attachment. It's pretty much just a solid blue Star Seeker, but the detail of the PlayStation button shape cycling on the hilt is cool. This and Phantom Gear were both pre-order bonuses, so to get them now you actually have to pay for them. Personally, I don't think it's worth the $3, but maybe Dawn Till Dusk is. This one's just really weird. It's only available on the PlayStation and Xbox versions of the game. It was a pre-order bonus themed to 7-Eleven in Japan, so in North America they said, I don't fucking know, and tied it to Amazon pre-orders. The handle is the color scheme of the 7-Eleven logo, but the bulk of the blade is standard silver. It's the only one of these extra KH3 things to not be associated with a game console, and really just throws a wrench into the whole set. You know, the more I talk about it, the more I think I hate this thing. Why? Just why? The 8s are our smallest group so far, with only 3 Keyblades, starting with Darker Than Dark. This might be my least favorite Keyblade name ever. What do you mean Darker Than Dark? Man, we've had so many, dark Keyblades, you know? How do we convey to the player that this goes beyond that? Like it's darkness, but somehow darker, you know? What should we call that? Stupid, dumb, I hate it, moving on. Some real hitters here, jumping from Days to Union Cross, it's a Sed's Keyblade. This one's definitely a bit much, but I respect what it's going for. It might as well just be a big beefy bear claw with a handle. It's certainly memorable, which is about all I can ask for with the Foreteller Keyblades. Let's round out this stellar group with another KH3 console exclusive, Advent Red. Where are my Nintendo people at? We won the console war! What was that? $80 Mario Kart? Game key cards? Gotcha, I'll rewrite that bit. Fucking Nintendo beat PlayStation and Xbox? This blows! What about the boycott? This is your fault somehow. In all seriousness, despite Kingdom Hearts on the Switch being a broken promise, I think we can all agree that this palette swap is really appealing. It's so colorful and fun, obviously reflecting the main colors of the original Switch controllers. The starry aesthetic also lends itself way better to Nintendo theming. It fills me with childlike wonder and whimsy. Here's hoping for some kind of Switch 2 Kingdom Hearts collection so I could use this Keyblade without any cloud involvement. And now I must inform you that the next 4 entries are technically all tied for a spot in the top 100. Shame that we couldn't get a clean divide here. I even checked to see if removing the write-ins would help, but no dice. I guess I'll let you all decide which of these 4 deserves the number 100 spot more. First up is More Days with True Light's Flight. Well, this at least has a great name. Makes me want to do laps around Neverland. This one's for the Airbenders. But that's not the only Days competitor here, we've also got Rejection of Fate. Coincidentally, the KH Wiki actually mentions how these 2 Keyblades have a similar property of an extendable combo, so I guess it was fate that they'd meet here like this. Shame that it rejects that. Also worth mentioning how the name Rejection of Fate feels particularly poignant for Roxas, so I guess this thing has earned its spot up here. We finally get our last KH3 console Keyblade with Dead of Night. Those goddamn PC fans, they beat my precious Nintendo Blade by 1 vote! I guess it can't be helped. This Keyblade represents the ultimate redemption for KH on PC, the day everyone deleted the Epic Game Store and opened Steam with joy in their hearts. It's also the newest usable Keyblade in existence, it's got a sick name, and the blue gradient is really nice. Personally, I definitely prefer Advent Red, and I can only get so excited about another Star Cluster palette swap, but Dead of Night's victory is deserved here. And the final candidate for the top 100 is actually 2 Keyblades in 1 entry, Zero Gear. So here's the deal. In Days Mission Mode, when you equip the Zero Gear with 3 ability units, Roxas will dual-wield Oathkeeper and Oblivion. Several people wrote in Zero Gear with this in mind. Several other people wrote in Oathkeeper and Oblivion as 1 entry because I guess they couldn't stand to use 2 separate votes on them. Instead of throwing those votes out or applying them to only one of the 2, I decided to lump those in with Zero Gear. So consider this the grander Oathkeeper and Oblivion conjoined entry. Those 2 blades will obviously show up again on their own much later, but for those who just can't separate the 2, this entry's for you. I'm not going to give much commentary here since I've got to write about these 2 blades later, but I will say that tearing through missions with dual-wielding Roxas is so much fun and I highly recommend it. And now our first single entry on the list. The only Keyblade to get exactly 10 votes and the definitive 99th most popular Keyblade is Circle of Life. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any other Keyblade that screams 99th place as much as this one. It's based on possibly the most popular Disney movie ever, and it's kind of unremarkable, but not terrible. I guess it's stuck with the same shtick as Jungle King, this tied together animalistic design. It's got a cool hook at the top invoking a claw of some sort. It's got MP haste, which is nice, but definitely outclassed by other abilities. Its name is a little on the nose, like they didn't dress it up in any way, it's just straight up the name of the song. I guess the guard is circular, so at least there's that. We've got 2 Keyblades with 11 votes and a long string of ties going forward, so I won't be seeing the placements again for a while. They'll be on screen though. Anyway, Stroke of Midnight. This is one that I almost voted for because I love its name. There aren't a whole lot of Keyblade names that work well as both a reference to their source material and as a cool name specifically for a sword, but this totally nails it. The word stroke has such a strong sense of movement to it, probably due to how similar it is to strike, so it works perfectly as the name of something meant to strike you down. And while it obviously comes from Cinderella, the phrase Stroke of Midnight is not so immediately obvious like Circle of Life, so the reference feels much cooler and thought through, chosen specifically because it makes for a good weapon name. It's a shame the design of this one is just bits of the castle stretched out. I'm not even sure what the teeth are supposed to be, it reads to me as a generic magic sparkle. The name is really carrying this thing far. The other blade with 11 votes is actually a write-in. Despite the game's cancellation, Missing Link's Fortune Gear has got quite a few fans. We breezed past the other Missing Link Keyblades back in the 1-vote group, but this is the default most iconic weapon, so it makes sense that it would siphon all the Missing Link appreciation. It does feel very representative of the game with the mechanical aesthetic of the gears reflecting the in-development Scala. I suppose I'd have more to say if I ever got to use this blade, but its inaccessibility is the whole story here. I'm sure every vote that went here was pouring one out for the death of Missing Link and showing appreciation for what the game could have been. And among those votes is Espurr Roba, the most mobile KH brain-rotted person I know. She's an amazing animator who has made all kinds of KH music videos on her YouTube, including one based on Missing Link to the song Hey Doctor Doctor. So maybe this vote was Stockholm Syndrome from needing to draw this Keyblade. She also streams on Twitch, mostly Ace Attorney at the moment, which I come in and do voices for every now and then, so come check it out. We've got a big group here with the blades that got 12 votes, starting with Crabclaw. This is actually the first KH1 Keyblade to appear, which is insane. I knew that there was a general affinity for the simpler style of Keyblades, and KH1s were always going to be more iconic just for being around the longest. But for every single KH1 Keyblade to be in the top 100 is still a crazy feat. That said, that does mean that Crabclaw here is the least popular KH1 blade, and I would have to agree with that sentiment. I mentioned earlier that I prefer Mysterious Abyss to this, a rare instance where the KH2 blade has a sleeker and simpler design compared to a more goofy KH1 Keyblade. It really all comes down to the crab here. You either think it's cute or way too silly. I'm also not a fan of the mermaid designs on the guard, they're really squished and ugly looking. I really only think this Keyblade got this far because it's one of the KH1 originals. Otherwise, it's down there with all those KH2, BBS, and DDD Disney blades. Let's knock out one more Hercules blade with Hero's Crest. This one's alright. It was never going to surpass the KH1 blade, but it's a solid design on its own. I like the two columns making up the blade. In fact, I think the three Hercules blades from KH1, 2, and 3 do that thing the Ultima weapons do where the number of blade sections lines up with the game's number. So Hero's Origin has 3 sections, Hero's Crest has 2, and Olympia has 1. That's some cool synergy. Hero's Crest on its own is probably the most useful early game KH2 blade with a really high strength stat and an air combo boost ability. So yeah, overall good Keyblade. Sticking with KH2, we've got Photon Debugger. I'm generally a much bigger fan of the overly 80s, making my eyes bleed aesthetic of the original Tron over the alternative. But even I have to admit that this Keyblade's a bit awkward. I still kinda like it though. It's a fucked up little guy, but it's my fucked up little guy. In general, there aren't a whole lot of sci-fi blades because there aren't a whole lot of sci-fi worlds, so any weird futuristic design is a nice breath of fresh air. This also comes with Thunder Boost, an ability that I really appreciate since I pretty much always default to spamming Thunder whenever I use magic. Did you know that this Keyblade has a unique appearance in Space Paranoids? Yeah, the red bits turn into this cool purple. How random. Well, if you hate looking at Photon Debugger, you'll be glad to know that we're moving on. You could say that this is your End of Pain. This is yet another Dream Drop post-game blade that I think is way easier and more fun to get than most people realize. The meme I always see is that it's called End of Pain because doing the special portals is so painful. Look, it's definitely more annoying and time-consuming than the bosses for Unbound, but doing all the special portals really isn't that bad. The game gives you every tool necessary to track your progress, and dropping to reset the portals is quick and easy. Anyway, I'm pretty sure most people voted for this because of the design, which is certainly dramatic. A lot of gazing eyes and butterfly imagery for some reason. Reminds me of Morpho Knight. I do think this design is trying a bit too hard to be the coolest, edgiest thing you've ever seen, but I can respect it fully committing to the bit. Alright, 2 more fill-in entries to round out this group. Next is the wooden Keyblade from Birth by Sleep. Obviously, this isn't a real Keyblade, just a toy. But of everything we've talked about so far, it's probably got the greatest story significance. Throughout BBS, this thing is the symbol of Ven and Terra's friendship, the training toy that Big Bro passed down to Little Bro. As Ven is constantly faced with the possibility that Terra might have turned to darkness, all it takes is one twirl of this Keyblade to remind him that Terra would never stray. When it comes time to pick a treasure to go in the chest in Neverland, the Keyblade is the obvious choice. And when Vanitas faces down Aqua, it only makes sense to snap that twig in two to really piss her off. In that moment, it becomes the thing that ties all 3 members of the Wayfinder trio together right before the endgame reunion. It's a solid bit of writing that makes BBS's story stand out among Kingdom Hearts games. Oh, and the blade even marks the start of Ven and Lee's friendship. Considering what both these characters would end up doing later down the line, or up the line in Ven's case, it's fun to see them have such a wholesome spar with toys. Just a lot of great stuff here. Kinda sad that we'll probably never see this Keyblade again, but it's a great standout despite it only having 1 appearance. And the final member of the 12-vote group is Hatsune Miku. So, clearly something was organized here. These 12 submissions all had distinct entries for the rest of the form, but a lot of them did come in back to back, so I assume a group of friends got together and encouraged each other to push Hatsune Miku through. This is a recurring bit from Pat's survey videos, where Miku got 1 vote in the first vid and 2 in the third vid, so she really upgraded here. Obviously, I have full control over this video and I could have chosen to just throw all these votes out, especially since it sort of devalues the top 100 a bit to have something so wildly unrelated make it up here. But I don't know, I guess I found it a little funny. Like, truly what's the harm in letting her have her votes? Some misplaced sense of statistical integrity. People wanted to see her make a weirdly deep run, so here you go. Truthfully, I still don't really have a sense of what Hatsune Miku even is. Like, I know the term Vocaloid, but I don't really know what that means. So I guess the comments can go ahead and explain that one. Anyway, the image you're looking at is some amazing art by Exousia Sword of a Kingdom Heartsified Hatsune Miku with a Miku-themed Keyblade called Virtual Diva, just to keep this slightly within the boundaries of the video topic. Also because it's great art. Frankly, a better music-themed Keyblade than the official one. I like the bow and arrow form change idea too, it reminds me of Opal from Steven Universe. Now that Crabclaw broke the ice, it's time to knock out some more KH1 Disney Blades. Leading the 13 vote group, we have 3 wishes. Definitely a simple but effective Keyblade. Rather than leaning really hard on any direct iconography from the film, it settles for capturing the general aesthetic of Aladdin instead. It's got a couple small flourishes, but it's ultimately a nice orangey gold Keyblade reminiscent of the iconic genie lamp. I suppose it has one prominently goofy element in that the teeth form a stylized number 3 for 3 wishes. I mean, yeah, I guess if you squint, but I'd be hard-pressed to find someone who immediately noticed that without being told. The Union Cross upgrade of this one sets the whole thing on fire, which is a really odd choice. Not that it's terribly wrong to associate Aladdin and Agrabah with fire, but it just isn't a real follow-up to what the Keyblade's design was doing before. Let's keep the KH1 ball rolling with Fairy Harp. This is one where I like all the ideas behind it, but I don't love how it all comes together. I like that it's short, so it feels kinda like a dagger. I like making Peter's pantsuit the teeth of the key. I like the fairy wings on the guard, general green coloration, and Keyblade name more closely aligning this with Tinkerbell. All the elements are great, there's just something off about the big picture for me here. Maybe it feels a little too cobbled together, or like the blade isn't big enough to hold all its little ideas. I don't know, but who cares if I like it or not? What's important is that 13 lovely people like it a lot, including the artist formerly known as Regular GF, Regular Fiancée. For those unfamiliar, this is Regular Pat's fiancé. Congrats again to you two, by the way. I don't think RF actually, makes content or anything, but her pics were highlighted in the battle popularity video, and I like consistency. I guess check her out on Pat's streams, she tends to pop in for a chat on those. Next up is Dark Gnaw, a Terra exclusive Keyblade from Birth by Sleep that is obtained through the Mirage Arena. How the hell is this not down in the trenches with Victory Line and Mark of a Hero? I guess never underestimate an edgy design. This is the Keyblade I have the hardest time picturing in my head when I hear its name. I always conflate it with the Sed's Keyblade for some reason. But it's neat, I guess. It's got a little dark jaw to Dark Gnaw with. This one is also in Union Cross for some reason, where it turns purple? I guess that's a pretty major color for the Darkness brand, but this thing was black and red before, so how did we get here? Oh, and why does this of all Keyblades have a gazing eye in the keychain? Between this and End of Pain, they're just giving those things away at this point. You know, looking at both, this does kind of feel like a beta End of Pain. Well, if there's any truth to that, this one went out, so I guess they shouldn't have messed with a good thing. For the last real Keyblade in the 13 vote group, we've got Void Gear, specifically the Vanitas Remnants. This is one of those entries on the forum that I felt made things a bit confusing. Most people recognize Void Gear as Vanitas' Keyblade with the red and black color scheme, which means there are 2 Keyblades with the same name that I wanted to collect votes for separately. On the drop down, I did this by calling them Vanitas' Keyblade, and Void Gear BBSFM from Vanitas Remnant. However, I did not have the same control over the write-in responses, so unless otherwise specified, I assumed write-ins for Void Gear were talking about the red and black Vanitas Keyblade, since it's significantly more popular. Sorry if those votes were meant for this Void Gear, but I think it only would have added 2 votes. But even though this thing was competing with its far more prominent palette swap, it still did pretty well for itself. At the end of the day, this is the one the player gets to use, so it's inevitable that we'd have some affinity towards it. It's also our trophy for defeating the dreaded Vanitas Remnant, which I've never tried to fight legitimately. It does not seem fun, but I will gladly take my cheesy win in BBS and more genuine win against Data Vanitas in KH3, who uses some of those Remnant moves. How many more times do I have to say Remnant before someone makes a FNAF comment? Another popular write-in sneaking its way up here, it's the Wooden Sword. You know, the toy sword Sora uses on Destiny Islands. Well, it's retroactively embarrassing that any of the real Keyblades ranked below this. You couldn't beat the purposely bad tutorial weapon. Even though this thing has the most basic design imaginable, I totally understand people voting for it. It's what you use to beat up Titus Waka and Selphie. For many, it's what first conquered Riku. It was instrumental in gathering coconuts for Kairi. And towards the end of the game, it was our low point, the thing we were forced to settle for after Riku snatched our Keyblade away. It's nothing but Beast and the Wooden Sword against the Hellspawn of Hollow Bastion. We're lucky this thing can somehow cast magic. And when Sora makes the series-defining speech, This is what he's holding. When he says, "I don't need a weapon," he's clutching that wooden handle for dear life, ready to charge in. In a way, it's the willingness to push forward with nothing but this sword and his friends that draws the Keyblade back to him. So yeah, I'd say this toy has earned its spot, just barely beating out the other wooden toy on the list. Speaking of wooden toys, leading the 14 vote group is Wishing Star, one of those KH1 Disney Keyblades that they just don't give you at the end of its world. Seriously, White Trinities, Olympus Cups, and a random visit to Geppetto's house in Traverse Town? Just give me the stupid thing, it's not even very good. Of all Keyblades, this one looks the most like it will snap in half at the slightest resistance. It at least captures the spirit of the source material far better than its Dream Drop counterparts, but this is a stick with gears hastily tied to it. And this is an especially underwhelming keychain. It's just a star, though the KH Wiki does point out that it's very similar to Naminé's Star Charm from Chain of Memories. I don't know what that could possibly mean other than the devs reusing assets or just having a very consistent style for stars, but maybe there's something there about Naminé wishing for companionship. Maybe if she finally gets a Keyblade of her own, it can be Wishing Star. Though I'd hope it get a Union Cross style upgrade, because this would be pretty pathetic next to the other protagonist blades. Next up, we're not done with Days blades yet, here we have Omega Weapon. This is essentially the Days version of the Ultima weapon, being named after the oft-associated Final Fantasy super boss. I love the direction they went with here. It seems that because it's got this slightly different name, the design was able to stray further away from what previous Ultimas established, while still giving that feeling of ultimate power. The curved design of the teeth actually reminds me of Iris Keyblade, which I didn't like at all, so I guess I'm a big hypocrite. But I love the black and gold color scheme here, a darker twist on the gold coloring of KH1's Ultima, complete with those small red highlights. The ornate spikes all around this one flow so much better here than they do in Ira's. A surprising amount of detail packed into a fairly limited sprite, which basically forces them not to overdo it. The whole thing's just rad as hell. I'm kinda surprised it's not the highest ranked Days Keyblade. We've still got 4 or 5 more of those to go, but this might be my personal favorite of the bunch. Speaking of foreteller blades, here comes the second favorite, Envy's Keyblade. Honestly, I'm a little surprised that we like this thing. I mean, looking at it now, it's not bad at all, but I did not remember it very well going into this. It's cool though, the jagged design of the blade and teeth flow almost like a serpent, and the half-open guard with leaves strewn about makes for a distinct and pretty visual. I guess the whole thing's got a bit of a plant motif with the teeth becoming thorns, and it's exactly my kind of color scheme with the purplish blues and lavenders. Yeah, okay, I think I get it now. It's a really nice Keyblade. But I think we all know which foreteller will win the day. Nice to see both the ladies taking the top spots though. Happy Women's History Month. Last of the 14s, we have the Keyblade. Specifically the Keyblade named Keyblade. But not the Keyblade. No, that's a different Keyblade named Keyblade. This is Keyblade. You know, from Dark Road. So they totally just forgot to give this thing a proper name, right? The reason we just call it Keyblade is because that's what the Keyblade cards in Dark Road say. Keyblade. This thing appears to be some kind of variation of the default Union Crossblade, but with a lot less whimsy. The negative space of the teeth here form a wayfinder shape, which is cool, but otherwise this seems intentionally designed as a relatively bland Keyblade for the entire Dark Road cast to wield. I'm sure any votes that went here are probably expressing a general affinity for Dark Road, which is fair. I do think that game gets a bit of a bad rap since it's so directly tied to the gacha slop of Union Cross. And I know if there's one Dark Road defender out there, it's Aid1043, the unsurprising VIP voter here. Aid's YouTube channel covers the most obscure Kingdom Hearts games out there. Think VCast, Mobile, Magical Puzzle Clash, it's all there. But to say Aid's just a YouTuber would be a real disservice. He's a regular editor of the KH Wiki, he's made several fun Kingdom Hearts sound quiz games, he brought the KH Hurdle back to life including a new Sudoku mode, he fully translated Kingdom Hearts Mobile, and he's made music. I like music. I wouldn't put it past him to somehow rebuild the entire Wonderland chapter of VCast from one stray line of code in an old Verizon phone. And you better subscribe to him in case that does happen, you don't want to miss it. The 15 vote group finally marks the appearance of our first Final Fantasy themed Keyblade, that being Gullwing. This has got one of the randomest unlock requirements, that being returning to the postern after the Battle of 1000 Heartless and triggering this cutscene where they offer it up to you. It's just weird that they don't set the scene up so you automatically get it after the battle. I mean, it's hard to miss when you go back through the world for Space Paranoids 2, but I wonder how many people ended up not getting it until then even though it was made available way earlier. And with an ability like Experience Boost, you'd obviously want Gullwing as soon as possible. Anyway, this thing is loud and bombastic in all the right ways, a perfect representation of FF10-2. I love that it's got elements of all their outfits. Pain's sword is the handle, Yuna's braid is the keychain with the token being the Xanark and Ape symbol she wears as part of her top, and Riku's feathers are the guard plus her bows make up the blade. And of course there's the incredibly obvious Gull's wing forming the teeth. It's kind of a mess, but it's a confident and powerful mess. I understand why this ranked the lowest of the FF blades. In the Kingdom Hearts context, it's associated with the least popular characters for sure, but as an FF10-2 fan, I really like this one. Let's knock another Days Keyblade out with... Leviathan? Really? I thought we were past the Days Keyblades where I had nothing to say. This Speed Omega weapon? Why? It's got a neat curl design, I guess, and it's apparently really good for aerial combat. Is it because it's named after a Final Fantasy summon? Is that all? I don't know, man, this one really confounds me. There's a contingent of people out there who pretty much just voted for 5 Days Keyblades, either to spite me, or because they genuinely feel these Keyblades are really cool and underappreciated. And look, I'm a Days dork too. It's in my top 5 Kingdom Hearts games above some pretty consequential stuff. But like, come on, what are we doing here? 15 votes for the Leviathan Keyblade? Well, if all goes well, this should be the last time I'm stumped like this. I guess let's just move on. The last of the 15s is none other than... the Ultima weapon? Oh, from Dream Drop Distance. Yeah, that makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if most people forgot it's even in this game. Of the DDD postgame blades, it's by far the simplest one to get. You just have to beat Julius. Not a small task on its own, but there's plenty of cheese out there. It does bug me that it's just locked behind a boss fight. I think part of the attachment to Ultima in other games is the quest to get it, the synth grind, for better or for worse. Having it unlock like any other Keyblade makes it lose a lot of the gravitas. Not to mention how it gets outclassed by other Keyblades. End of Pain matches its magic, and Unbound surpasses its strength and reality shift rate. On top of all of that, the design ends up feeling really derivative of past Ultimas. I guess they didn't want to sport a brand new color scheme for side games, so they went with this mixed yellow and blue look that feels like the worst of both worlds. But hey, it still managed 15 votes, beating all the other Dream Drop post-game blades, likely off of name recognition alone. There were a couple people that dropped votes for all 5 Ultimas, and I can't really blame them. It's one of the most iconic staples of the series for a reason. Entering the 16s, we've got our first main protagonist default Keyblade. You know, excluding Data Kingdom Key, or the Dark Road Keyblade, or Zero Gear. Anyway, it's Earthshaker. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense. If you're gonna vote for a Terra Keyblade, why wouldn't you vote for the more iconic upgrade? It's such a shame that Terra gets downgraded back to Earthshaker in KH3, but for what it's worth, this one's still cool. It doesn't pack the same punch as its older brother, but for a purposely simplified design, it gets the job done. It's a big earthy Keyblade for the strong Earth boy. It got to do so many cool things like steal Aurora's heart, shoot out Braig's eye, turn into a go-kart to help Terra win Rumble Racing fair and square. Then it took a 12-year sabbatical before helping shoot Demon Xehanort with a light laser. What a charmed life for Earthshaker. Only one other Keyblade with 16 votes, and it's also from Birth by Sleep. I'm really surprised to see Pixie Petal this high. I always associate this Keyblade with the fact that, when you unlock it, you'll also immediately unlock the main story upgrade Keyblade. So this one almost never gets used in a typical BBS playthrough. But I guess that didn't matter to 16 of you who I assume are all in on the design over any gameplay application. A well-realized plant concept with the stem forming the blade and flower bulbs forming the teeth. It's very visually appealing. It kinda loses any major Peter Pan connection compared to Fairy Harp, but I have to admit that this design came out a lot better. At the very least, I know it appeals to Danbop, and that's certainly a glowing review. Danbop is part of the core trio of Espurr Ace Attorney streams, but they also have their own Twitch channel where you can see them play Kirby, Professor Layton, and most importantly, Eggs of Steel. They've also got a YouTube channel where they've started posting some art projects, including a One Piece Freak and a fully drawn Poke-Rap, so go check them out. On to the 17s, and just barely beating its DDD counterpart, we have Ultima Weapon from Birth by Sleep. A lot of what I said about Dream Drop's Ultima applies to this one. A derivative design, not as satisfying to obtain, this one's from the boss rush in the Mirage Arena, not even the strongest blade in the game, pretty much a complete letdown on all fronts. This one's definitely trying a little harder with the Wayfinder as the teeth making this far more distinct, but it's clearly not enough to pull that far ahead. Again, it's still an Ultima weapon, so it did pretty well for itself, but knowing how well the 3 main Ultimas did really puts into perspective how far this and the Dream Drop iteration fell in comparison. But speaking of the BBS Keyblade that's stronger than Ultima, Royal Radiance managed to tie it here. I don't really know why the side games liked making a Keyblade that was stronger than Ultima, but they definitely stick out more in my mind as a result. Seriously though, why even have Ultima in the game at that point? I guess this was a Final Mix edition, so this was a bit of a power scaling problem, but Dream Drop did not have that excuse with Unbound. These two share a keychain, and I do really like them as a pair. They feel so much more defined, likely because they could break away from the design conventions of the Ultimas. You get Royal Radiance from beating No Heart, which is a much more arduous process than anything else in either of these two games, so the insane reward is very appropriate. You can only unlock No Heart by completing everything else in the Mirage Arena. That includes Command Board, Rumble Racing, and the Armor of Ericus Super Boss. So this Keyblade is locked behind 2 Super Bosses. It better be the strongest thing in the game. The whole design screams champion of the Mirage Arena. It's basically that world's aesthetic in blade form, topped with a crown. The constant glow adds this overwhelming sense of power. It's literally radiant. I imagine this Keyblade would do much better if more people were reasonably able to obtain it, but I imagine the Mirage Arena is a tough sell for most. But for those of us that have conquered it, I'm sure we wield this trophy with pride. Well, only Aqua has it for me. No way in hell I'm doing that shit 3 times. It's been a while since we've seen a DDD Disney Blade, huh? I mean, there's only 6 of them, but we breezed through most of them super early on. But Counterpoint here managed to pull ahead of the pack. Any affinity I have towards this blade is really directed more at the world it's based on. Symphony of Sorcery is so cool that anything associated with it seems to get extra points. Looking at Counterpoint in isolation, well, with that color scheme, it's definitely from Dream Drop. I like the treble clef with a sorcerer's hat topping it off, but the curved blade with the 8th note sticking out looks odd. It's just very uneven and messes with the iconic Keyblade silhouette. Still though, fun to have a music Keyblade. Oh yeah, this one's also in Union Cross for some reason. It gets trumpets, and the treble clef gets the bi flag on it. Sure, why not? Speaking of Union Cross, next up is Moogle O'Glory. Can't believe it took 8 games for a Moogle Keyblade to happen. This one's got a little side quest associated with it where a Moogle shopkeeper tries to make their own Keyblade, only for the player to use the keychain to form Moogle O'Glory. The blade itself is a treasure spewing out of a chest with a Moogle clutching onto it to form the teeth. So swinging this blade means bonking this poor Moogle on whatever enemy happens by. I'd feel bad if it wasn't so darn cute. I vastly prefer Moogle designs in the Final Fantasy games over these Kingdom Hearts balloon animals, but I can't deny how charming this whole concept is. The base concept was so good that the upgrades only bothered with adding a lot of sparkles and rainbow lights. I mean, what else were you gonna do? Add more Moogles? Okay, that would be kind of fun. You know what else is fun? March Caprice. Wait, you don't know what March Caprice is? Well, I have you know that the VIP voter for this entry, Chaineh, is one of the main people behind this incredible Kingdom Hearts fan event held every March around the anniversary of KH1. Fans come together and all create incredible KH projects to be released over the course of the event, from music to art to videos, cosplay, writing, and more. Come to think of it, I really need to work on my own project for this year. Anyway, Chaineh's like the March Caprice guy, and we love him for it. He's also got his own YouTube channel and is a senior administrator on the KH database, so go check his stuff out and get excited for March Caprice 2026. Alright, the last thing in this group is our second most popular write-in. A lot of you might be surprised to find out that Soul Eater, Riku's weapon from KH1 and Chain of Memories, isn't actually a Keyblade. It's just a cool sword. It is treated as sort of an intermediary for Riku before he gets a proper Keyblade, but Soul Eater itself is not it. It has no keychain, and it's not really key-shaped in the slightest. Not that future Keyblades don't break that rule anyway. I believe there is one non-canon KH game that might describe it as a Keyblade, but it's non-canon for a reason. It's not on Melody of Memory's canon list of Keyblades, so I'm not treating it as one either. In any case, part of the reason I wanted to let y'all give write-in answers is because I wanted to see how many people would vote for specifically Soul Eater. Turns out the answer was 17 of you. I'm sure if this was a proper Keyblade, it'd be even higher, but since it's not, this is an impressive showing. It makes sense though. Soul Eater has been repeatedly presented as Riku's main weapon. There's the aforementioned KH1 and Chain of Memories, but he also uses it in Days, KH2, Recoded, and even briefly at the start of Dream Drop. And then of course Dark Riku uses it in KH3 just to spit in the face of Riku's progress. This is the weapon of Riku's fall to darkness, the tool he was forced to use when Sora took the Keyblade back and proved himself stronger. A giant red outstretched batwing embedded with a gazing eye, a straightforward design for a villain's weapon, but it works great. Riku continuing to wield it while on the road to redemption after KH1 makes for a great juxtaposition. For all his efforts in fighting the darkness and helping Sora, his weapon acts as a constant reminder of his initial failure. It's only right that it eventually evolves to match Riku's new resolve, but its impact lasts through the entire Xehanort saga for good reason. Only 2 Keyblades managed 18 votes, the first of which is Winner's Proof. Every numbered game likes to have one Keyblade with a higher magic stat than Ultima, and Winner's Proof is that for KH2. In exchange, this thing has the no experience ability, which doesn't matter if you're doing a level 1 run, are already at level 99, or you're fighting a boss since those don't give experience anyway. The design here is really goofy, just being made up of all 13 mushrooms, but I respect the commitment to the bit. Squeezing 4 of them into the keychain is especially funny to me. It's also part of a set since Donald and Goofy are able to get various mushroom weaponry as drops. So if you really want the whole squad in matching mushroom gear, you can do that. I'm sort of dancing around the big story here because this is probably the most annoying Keyblade to get in any of the numbered titles. It's hard to really compare it to any synthesis grind, but satisfying the Mushroom 13 is obnoxious as hell, especially without a guide. Even with a guide, certain culprits like Mushroom number 8 have taken years off my life. So I'm sure for many, this vote is about the achievement more so than the blade itself. This is the only Keyblade package with a funny little crown as a reward, so they clearly knew this was a difficult thing to get. The other 18 vote getter is another protagonist blade, in fact the newest one introduced. It's Axel's Bond of the Blaze, alternatively named Flame Liberator, but again, I treat Melody of Memory as gospel and it says Bond of the Blaze. This is sort of a mix of the previous two Axel Keyblades between the Chakram Guard and Fiery Plume forming the blade and teeth. In KH3 scenes, it's got a cool fire effect that's difficult to convey in an image. It'd be cool if someone made a gif of that or something. But the star of the show here is that this thing is able to form change into Axel's old Chakrams. Oh, we had a single vote for that way earlier. Maybe that could have gone to this? Well, nothing got 19 votes, so we can just imagine that this one did since the order doesn't change. Being able to switch between Keyblade and Chakrams adds a lot of flair to Axel's fighting in KH3, even if we never get to play as him in any meaningful way. It facilitates a couple interesting team attacks in Remind, and that's more than enough to get my Axel fix. I guess it's also worth mentioning the moment where Xemnas pulls a Vanitas and just breaks that shit. Axel kinda had it coming with that cheesy little speech he gave, but you didn't have to do him that dirty. Overall, incredible scene, and this Keyblade's at the center of it, so I'm sure that's earning it some points. Jumping up to 20 votes, we've got Rumbling Rose, a rather bestial design to complement the KH1 Beauty and the Beast Keyblade. It's fittingly a very powerful Keyblade, which is perhaps why you don't get it until your second visit to Beast Castle. That focus on power even comes through in its ability, with Finishing Plus allowing you to unleash more of your most powerful move. That big beefy claw looks like it could tear through anything, and the rose imagery really emphasizes the thorns. It's definitely not a pretty Keyblade, some might even say it's one of the ugliest of the bunch, but I think that's intentional. You can't be deceived by appearances, for beauty is found within. It must suck to actually wield this thing though. Those thorns near the handle look like they'd scratch your hands all the time. Next we have a rather unique Keyblade, as Fatal Crest is specifically themed to the underworld. I don't think there's any other instance of a Disney property getting two different Keyblades in one game, unless you count the two Disney Town Blades in BBS. Oh, and Pinocchio in Dream Drop. But this serves as a counterpart to the more Olympus-themed Hero's Crest. Since most of the world this time was the underworld, I suppose it's fitting that the Keyblade would be themed to it, but I sort of just wish they didn't bother with Hero's Crest at all and just committed to this as the Hercules Keyblade for the game. As it stands, most people probably don't even bother getting this blade since the KH2 cups aren't nearly as enticing to complete as KH1s. It is cute that the Hades cup acts as the keychain here, and the rest of the design is gnarly as hell, pun intended. We love a big old bone dragon forming the blade and teeth, and the giant skull from the movie forming the guard. This also comes with Berserk Charge, so it's the tool for dealing with that accursed mushroom number 8. And this was the Keyblade with the higher magic stat than Ultima before Final Mix came around and made Winner's Proof even better. That brings us back to days with Aubade. Learning about this Keyblade was one of my favorite parts of reading the submissions for this video. First of all, the gear you need to access this blade is the Mystery Gear, which is described as drawing forth the wielder's personality. For a lot of characters, this ends up as an alternate joke weapon, but a handful get these really distinct and badass designs that seem to come with a deeper meaning. This is absolutely the case for Roxas and Xion, who get Aubade. For those of you asking, what the fuck does Aubade even mean? Get ready to be emotionally crushed. According to Wikipedia, an Aubade is a song or poem about lovers separating at dawn. Well, shit, I'm reliving day 357 all over again. Obviously, that definition implies something romantic, but I think it's an emotional gut punch just from a platonic love standpoint. Here is a representation of Roxas and Xion's final goodbye, two people who were each other's lights in the terrible world of the organization, now forced to depart as Sora's dawn approaches. It's a cruel and unfair goodbye, but with the underlying comfort of how much these two care about each other. All of Xion's Keyblades are just copied and pasted from Roxas's in this game, but I think it's so appropriate that they both get to wield this one. An Aubade is a dialogue between two after all, and it works so well as the weapon representing their innermost personality. A glimmer of light fueled by the love you have for another. My friends are my power, or something like that. The design seems to enforce that. Its base is just a sword, but it gets these flourishes of light to fill in the rest of the Keyblade shape. One of the coolest ideas among these days blades, and I would have never known about it if not for people in the forum pointing it out to me. Thank you for making this project even more worth it than it already was. Coming down from the high of talking about that, we actually get another solo entry with 21 votes. The definitive 66th most popular Keyblade is also the most popular foreteller Keyblade, Ava's. Yeah, I could have called that one. Ava is by default the most prominent and popular foreteller, so it's no surprise that her name alone would bump this up. But it also helps that it's real pretty. The word that immediately comes to mind every time I see it is coral. I suppose that's a mix of the color scheme and the swirly design evoking water. As with all the foreteller blades, it's got a column for the handle, the corresponding animal head at the hilt, and a gazing eye in the keychain, all of which make for a fun to look at set. I suppose getting to see the foretellers in a future game will boost the standing of all of these Keyblades significantly, but for now, Ava making it all the way to 66 is quite the achievement for only being in a mobile game and back cover. And honestly, I couldn't even tell you if this Keyblade shows up in back cover at all aside from the opening. There's only one Union Cross blade left now, and I think we all know what it is, so congrats to Ava's Keyblade for the silver, but we all know you are never getting close to the gold. Back to a bigger group here, with 22 votes, we've got Jungle King. This one always kinda weirded me out. It looks like it's made of bones, ew. And it doesn't really evoke Tarzan in any way other than general jungle vibes. Though I do love the butterfly from You'll Be in My Heart as the keychain. But even with those criticisms, I still find myself liking this Keyblade, if only for the fact that it was the first newly equipable Keyblade ever. This effectively introduced the player to the very concept that is driving this entire video. Before Jungle King, there was just the Keyblade. But now that old thing is Kingdom Key, and who cares because this is a little stronger. I'm sure a keen-eyed player would have already put 2 and 2 together after seeing Donald and Goofy weapons in the shop and noticing Sora has a similar equipment slot, but I ain't no Spiro, that totally went over my head on my first playthrough. Which is fine because it made the surprise of Jungle King all the better. In a way, I'm glad Jungle King's design is kind of underwhelming because it meant future designs had nowhere to go but up. These last few days Keyblades are dropping like flies now. What beat out the emotionally impactful Aubade? A fucking umbrella. Of course. You get this Keyblade from the casual gear, which gives every character a joke weapon. Axel gets pizzas, Marluxia gets a ladle, Xigbar gets hair dryers, and Roxas and Xion get the umbrella. I always forget that they actually hold the top of the umbrella, so the crook acts as the teeth. Weird. The keychain's a little snail, I guess because they come out in the rain. Life is simply unfair. Okay, I'm not that joyless. I do think this Keyblade's funny. When your weapon roster is filled with similarly named blades that have a select few distinguishing features between them, of course the silly one is gonna stand out. And you know, it does sound fun to go around whacking Heartless with an umbrella. It also makes for a really convenient weapon to use for cosplay. Next, we finally get to another one of my picks and a fairly popular blade among the VIPs. It's the Ratatouille Keyblade Grand Chef. I just love that this exists because they really didn't have to, you know? They almost never make extra Keyblades for Disney properties that don't get worlds. In fact, the only other times it happens are twice in KH1 and one other KH3 example. And there are instances where properties get passed over for Keyblades, most prominently Winnie the Pooh and 101 Dalmatians in KH1. So there was never any guarantee that Ratatouille would get anything. It's a random minigame diversion in Twilight Town. It could have rewarded you with an accessory for completing the menu and no one would have batted an eye. But they went the extra mile and designed this beauty. I love everything about this. The Eiffel Tower as the blade, the chef's hat topping it off, the logo of Le Ratatouille restaurant as the teeth, the corkscrew handle, the wine bottles on the guard, the anyone can cook keychain. You can call KH3 Keyblades over-designed all you want, but I think all the elements of this one come together perfectly. And you'll notice, we haven't talked about any KH3 Disney blades since Hero's origin. They all get an insane buff from KH3's overhauled Keyblade mechanics. Form changes give each blade a much stronger gameplay identity, and the Forge allows you to upgrade them so they can be used throughout the game without getting outclassed. Grand Chef's is admittedly a tad underwhelming since it just copies Hero's origin, but the aesthetics carry it so far with the frying pan as the shield and the incredible shot lock cutting up all the ingredients. What a feast for the eyes. Oh, and the Ratatouille taste particles for the weaker shot lock, it's all so good. I'm glad to have a couple friends in my corner for this one, including the first appearance of G-Meister. He is the final member of the Core Ace Attorney trio and an excellent streamer in his own right. You can catch him probably playing the newest Sonic game, or hopefully hopping back on the KH1 speedrunning train, among other things. You could also check out his YouTube for the highlights from Twitch. Go check him out. Alright, the last member of this group is actually another one of my picks. None other than Star Cluster. This one's just very aesthetically pleasing to me. Just compare it to my profile pic and everything should make sense. I love a blue and purple space look. I'm also a pretty big fan of all things Mickey Mouse, so I was bound to get attached to one of the guy's Keyblades. What's fun about Star Cluster is that it's a bit of a fusion of his other two Keyblades. You get the general shape and gold elements from Kingdom Key D mixed with the colors and stars of Starseeker. It's a best of both worlds situation for me. A sleeker, simpler silhouette with the fun space elements sprinkled on. I especially like the random starry space orb at the hilt. Clearly the devs liked this blade a lot too, since it was the basis for half the console exclusive blades. And Mickey using it to hold back the replica Xehanorts in the microwave hallway is an all-timer Kingdom Hearts moment for me. Seriously, it's like top 5 at worst. Though I suppose referring to Star Cluster as Mickey's blade leaves something out here, as it's also very prominently used by Anti-Aqua. It's fun how the Keyblade kinda fits for both of them. When Mickey's holding it, you feel the whimsy and grandeur. When Anti-Aqua's holding it, you feel the dark color palette blending into her. It's also just fun to have a boss using a stolen blade. It adds an extra element of malice to the whole thing. Personally, I'm really looking forward to getting to use this again in those supposed playable Mickey sections of KH4. We'll get there someday. 2 Keyblades managed 23 votes, including our next Final Fantasy blade. It's the other FF10 representative, Guardian Soul, obviously themed to Auron. Fun fact, Olympus Coliseum is the only Disney World in KH2 to give you a Keyblade at the end of both visits. Hero's Crest for the first, and Guardian Soul for the second. I always feel like I'm walking on eggshells when talking about anything related to Auron because KH2 does low-key spoil FF10. So there are a lot of cool elements of this Keyblade where I just kinda have to keep my mouth shut. Auron's Jug of Sake as the keychain is cool. Reaction Boost is a useful ability. It's neat that the particle effects for this one are Yevon symbols. Look, just go play FF10, then we'll talk, I swear. Shame that the FF10 reps are the least favored Final Fantasy blades, but I suppose they've got stiff competition. Now we finally get to the fan-favorite Days Keyblade. Out of the 22 freely equipable weapons for Roxas and Xion, the one that came out on top was Missing Ache. This is obtained very early on in Days and effectively acts as the tutorial for the Keyblade gear system, so of course it'd stick out the most for Days fans. It's got a fairly simple design, which makes sense for such an early game weapon, but you can't deny that it works very well, and having Roxas's cross symbol forming the teeth is a nice touch. But of course, Days is only half the story here. This Keyblade lies at the accursed intersection of Days fans and Union Cross fans. Ventus wields the upgraded Missing Ache, which I'm assuming is meant to be a nod towards his connection to Roxas. They do sorta share a face. The name also fits well considering Ven's amnesia for this entire part of the timeline. He's missing this part of himself, perhaps too painful a memory to hold on to. A missing ache, if you will. I think the upgrade kinda loses what little identity the initial design had, but it's still fun to have this cosmic connection between our 2 Jesse McCartneys, both wielding this blade at the very start of their journeys. Perhaps it's a bit unfair that Missing Ache rises above its Days brethren simply because it showed up again later, but it's a better winner than Umbrella, so I say it's a well-earned victory. Nothing got 24 votes, so we're jumping straight to 25 with Classic Tone. This is the KH3 Keyblade with a higher magic stat than Ultima, and the other example from KH3 of a Disney property getting a Keyblade despite not having a world. Of course, Mickey Mouse is in a different position than any other Disney property, but it still counts. For those willing to spend an hour doing the bare minimum in Classic Kingdom, you get such a fun homage to the cartoon aesthetic of the Mickey Mouse universe, now in Technicolor. This is just so charming, the wooden planks making up the blade, the horns for the teeth, the classic glove hanging onto it, the colorful gears forming the guard, and the steering wheel of the original Steamboat for the keychain. It's all complemented by the different form change animations really taking advantage of the goofy shape. The form changes themselves are just copied from the Toy Story Keyblade, but I'd argue they fit this blade even better. And of course, the shot lock here paying homage to Timeless River is just the cherry on top. The only other Keyblade with 25 votes is an odd one. It's the Replica Kingdom Key. So this is just identical to the standard Kingdom Key. The only difference is that this one's Xion's, but only in KH3. I suppose the whole idea in Days is that Roxas and Xion are just straight up borrowing and multiplying Sora's Kingdom Key, which is why Roxas gets weaker as Xion gets stronger. They're pulling a Keyblade from the same source. But now in KH3, Sora's fully operational, so they gave Xion's Kingdom Key this distinction. What's crazy to me is that Melody of Memory does bother to list this Keyblade separately, but they just call it Kingdom Key, and that would have been a nightmare on the form. For all those who voted for this, I have to assume it's just because y'all saw Xion's name and had to show her some love, which I deeply respect. Xion rules. Either that, or y'all just wanted an excuse to vote for Kingdom Key multiple times, which I don't respect. Either way, this ended up making a way deeper run than I think anyone would have expected, so good for it. Here's hoping Xion gets a proper new Keyblade that she can really call her own in future games. Starting our 26 vote group is Sweet Stack. It's ice cream. I could end this section right here if I wanted to. Like, we all get it, right? The ice cream scoops making up the blade are cute, the orange slices as the teeth are cute, the fact that they just changed the number of scoops for each character to change its length is cute. It's a cute Keyblade. I always found it to be a bit annoying to get. Not that it's particularly hard to gather the flavors from all the worlds, it just sucks that the Mirage Arena set is like 10 battles deep. But I suppose you all found this cute enough to be worth it. Moving right along, we have another blade that caused problems for the form. No Name is ironically the name of two different Keyblades. Much like with Void Gear, I used parentheses to make the drop-down options clearer. I called this No Name BBSFM from Young Xehanort. But there was no way to account for write-ins in that way, so I assumed that any write-in No Name votes were meant for the more popular Keyblade. This could have reasonably changed some standings since at least 9 votes said No Name with no specifications, but I'm pretty confident I made the right call here. Anyway, the No Name in question is pretty clearly a precursor to Young Xehanort's proper Keyblade, so I think it'll make more sense to talk about its design when that Keyblade comes up. For our purposes, this is just the cool and mysterious reward you get for defeating that bullshit secret boss in Land of Departure. I feel like I'm a bit nicer to this boss than most. I've only defeated him as Aqua, which is almost certainly influencing my opinion, but for as broken as he can be, I still found it fun to learn his moves and conquer this challenge. Is it anywhere near as good as any bosses in the numbered titles? No, but I can appreciate it for what it is. Next up, it's Laughter Thereafter with Happy Gear. Gotta say, I don't love that most of this Keyblade is just sorta generic machinery, but it has its cute bits with Boo's door on the hilt, the scream canisters on the guard, the helmet on top, and Boo's monster costume as the keychain. But as with any KH3 Keyblade, the real fun comes from the form changes. This blade's all about close quarters combat. You start with the agile claws to tear through stuff, and then get upgraded to the twin yo-yos. If you are not having fun whipping around yo-yos to destroy the darkness, I feel sorry for you. A yo-yo is objectively the dumbest and coolest weapon any character can wield because it's better than a weapon. It's a toy. It's one of my favorite Kirby abilities, and I'm glad Sora gets to be in on the action. And you know who else is glad? Our next VIP voter, Hot Coco Rock. Coco's been a dear friend of mine for over a decade at this point. I actually got to watch them experience KH3 for the first time and how much they loved the different form changes, so it's heartwarming to see this make their top 5. You can check them out on Twitch for a grand old time. Last in this group, I guess the KH3 gears just had to stick together, cause we've got Nano Gear. I've never been the biggest fan of Big Hero 6, but this Keyblade manages to pack so many cute references in a fairly sleek and comprehensive design that I have to respect it. You've got Hero's bot as the hilt, the handle has the same pattern as Fred's costume, the guard has Wasabi's laser blades, Go-Go's disc is on the bottom, Honey Lemon's chem balls form the chain, and Baymax's doctor logo is the token. They really pack a lot into such a small part so that the main blade can be this much less cluttered red and black design. And then the form change really goes above and beyond. At first, the nano arms just kinda look like a sword, not terribly exciting, but once you start attacking, it becomes clear that this is a fusion of all the other form changes. The hammer, drill, claws, yo-yos, and flag all have attacks within the nano arms, plus a giant fist that reminds me of the hero's origin counter. And it's all contextualized through the microbots from the movie. What an incredibly clever way to naturally utilize this movie element and make this Keyblade feel so much more representative of the source material. If this blade wasn't obtained so late in the game and right after a different blade with higher stats, I'm sure even more people would have used it and seen just how lovingly crafted it was. Alright, nothing got 27 votes, so we're jumping to 28 with Sweet Memories. It's the promised Winnie the Pooh Keyblade that KH1 never got. A very cute concept here with the honey tree growing out of the honey pot that forms the guard. This is also positioned as a bit of a joke weapon. Its strength stat is 0, it's the weakest Keyblade in the game. In the original KH2, it had Lucky Lucky, so it basically only existed for synthesis grinding. In Final Mix, it has Drive Converter, so it basically only exists for Master Form grinding. But I've also seen people use this for challenges. Beating Sephiroth or Lingering Will with a 0 strength Keyblade is definitely an achievement of sorts. I suppose the mentality here is that the 100 Acre Wood is a peaceful world with no enemies, so having a bit of fun and making the weapon you get from it terrible in combat is sort of thematically fitting. It certainly makes the blade far more memorable than a lot of other KH2 blades. But I'm sure that's also helped by a general affinity for Winnie the Pooh. My guy was seriously robbed in KH1, and this is his retribution. Finally, a silly little Keyblade for our silly old bear. Next up is another Keyblade name I absolutely adore. You're my favorite deputy. What a perfect reference that also works great as a weapon name. What is a deputy but a trusted partner, just as a weapon is to its wielder? I feel like when people complain about over-designed KH3 Keyblades, they usually point to this one. And yeah, I get it. There's a lot going on here. but I do think there kinda had to be. Toy Story is a property about toys, so a childish and goofy design is sort of inevitable. It's also a story of two halves, Woody and Buzz, so you need to represent both. All things considered, I think they did a great job here. Woody gets the top half with the cactus blade and sheriff badge teeth, while Buzz gets the bottom half with the rocket guard and alien keychain. It works out nicely, but I understand people's distaste for it. It's pretty high on this ranking, so I guess I'm not the only one who likes it. Though again, we have to give credit to KH3's form changes. Here we have Hyper Hammer and Drill Punch. I've always thought it was weird that these weren't swapped with Happy Gears. A drill is a machine you might find in a factory, while yo-yos are toys. Are they not attached to the wrong blades? Not a big deal at all, but a little odd. In any case, both form changes are really fun to use, but at this point, that's a given. Alright everyone, we are one entry away from the top 50. I think it's incredibly appropriate that our final and most popular write-in response fills this next slot. With 28 votes, the fan favorite Keyblade that I did not consciously include on the form was... Roxas. That's a stick. Not only did this beat every other blade from Days, but around 60 other actual Keyblades. A stick. I guess when you have the loud voices of the Days fandom combined with the overwhelming power of memes, there's no stopping it. And the best part? I fucking love this thing. It's a genuinely really cute moment in the story. Xion's been unable to use her Keyblade for a while, so Roxas has basically been covering her shift. Saïx can tell something fishy is going on, so he insists this will be their last mission together. In a desperate attempt to help Xion summon her Keyblade again, Roxas lets her use his for the day. And in lieu of another option, Roxas improvises. It's an adorable little my friends are my power moment that has actual gameplay ramifications since you're stuck using this terrible weapon for the entire mission. Though much like Sora's wooden sword, it can still use magic. I guess wood is just inherently magical. By the end, the effort you put in to help Xion pays off and she's able to summon her Keyblade again. This little arc is the most slice-of-life thing to happen in Days. It's slotted right in between the trio getting properly acquainted and the first time Xion meets Riku and starts disappearing. It basically defines their natural friendship when nothing heartbreaking is going on. We care about these three friends because of this arc, and at the center of it all is a stick. And yeah, it's also funny. Roxas is so gung-ho to use it, and Xion's deadpan reaction is the perfect counter. I'm kind of glad this line hasn't been voice acted. I think it sells the bluntness better this way. Anyway, I've definitely talked way too long about this thing, and I'm sure a lot of you are just happy that this is finally the last time we're talking about any meme submissions, or Days for that matter. It had a good run, but couldn't quite crack the top 50. I suppose now would be a good time to start verbalizing placements again, though we do still have a bunch of ties to sift through. These next three are all tied for that coveted number 50 spot at 29 votes each. First on the list is Monochrome, the most popular Keyblade based on Mickey Mouse and Friends. This feels similar to Counterpoint for me, where the association with the world really carries the blade. Timeless River is such a charming concept, and that totally comes through in its Keyblade. It's a bunch of cobbled together parts of the famous steamboat, all in glorious black and white. Funny how it's somehow more monochrome when in Timeless River. Nothing else to really say. This one's self-explanatory, a timeless classic for sure. The next member of the 50 Club is Rainfell, Aqua's default Keyblade. Of the BBS default blades, this one gets the least time to shine since it doesn't come back for KH3. Much like Earthshaker, it's a simplified version of a stronger blade first seen in KH2's Secret Ending. But Earthshaker had much rougher competition. Rainfell's triangular teeth give it a strong distinguishing feature, at least enough to hold its own against its upgrade. Obviously, Aqua is a very popular character, so maybe it's a bit surprising to see a Keyblade of hers down here, but she's gone through a lot of main weapons, so I guess those Aqua votes got spread out among them. In any case, it's a nice simple watery design for the magic-focused water girl. And last for the 50 Club is the other Winnie the Pooh Keyblade, Honeyspout. I'm a bit surprised to see this above Sweet Memories, even if it was only by one vote. I guess form changes really are the difference maker. The blasters and launcher here do copy Shooting Star, but the added honey effects really make it feel distinct. They created an entire status condition just for this Keyblade. All it does is slow enemies down, but it's still a cool addition. As for the design, it really is all about the honey. 4 honey pots stacked up to form the blade with a geyser of honey for the teeth surrounded by bees. It feels like a very small deviation from what we got with Sweet Memories, much like how the Olympus Keyblades slightly deviate from each other. I can't help but wonder if there aren't other elements of Winnie the Pooh that could have made for a more distinct Keyblade concept, but hey, you all like this one more, so maybe I'm seeing a problem where there isn't one. 2 Keyblades tied for 46th place with 30 votes. Another Aqua Keyblade's on the chopping block, Bright Crest. This Keyblade has got to have the most limited usage out of any equipable blade in the series. It unlocks as you start the final episode, but the only thing the final episode has is the Terranord fight. Plus, you can't carry this into the secret episode because you get locked into using one specific Keyblade for that. So I guess this is just the Terranord Slayer. It's definitely a bit much. I like the way the waves form the shape of the blade, but I think I could have done without the Wayfinder plastered on the top and on the keychain. Aqua's the only BBS character to use her Wayfinder as a keychain, which feels odd to me. This really feels like it should be part of some kind of set with the boys. With how many extra Keyblades Terra got, surely at least he could have had a Wayfinder one. So yeah, just an odd Keyblade that exists for a very short amount of time. But it sure is pretty. That brings us to our most popular Disney blade from Dream Drop, Dual Disc. You know, as much as I can't stand the Tron Legacy aesthetic, especially compared to the original Tron, I gotta respect the concept here. 2 identity discs, one as the teeth and the other as the guard, connected diagonally to flow into the circular shape. It looks really cool and is so visually satisfying. And of course, the idea of wielding 2 identity discs feels very specific to Tron Legacy as it's Rinsler's signature move. Funny how the already muted colors get even lamer when this thing's in the grid. Dream Drop may have had a rough go of it early on, but it did manage to beat all the Birth by Sleep Disney blades. The most popular one there was either Pixie Petal or Sweet Stack if you count that as Disney. All it takes is one really solid design to bolster the pack up. Tied for 44th with 31 votes, hide your black materia and ponytailed flower girls, here comes the One-Winged Angel. This design is stellar. Sephiroth's Masamune topped with a fiery meteor for the teeth. Every swing sets Nibelheim ablaze. But there's a catch. This Keyblade's sort of an all-or-nothing alternative to Ultima. Its stats aren't great, in fact it takes 2 MP away from you, but it has a really high crit bonus that could potentially rival Ultima's power. It's quite the gambit, but could really do some damage with a little bit of luck. Practically, I don't know anyone who would use this over Ultima, but the option is still cool. Of course, this is your reward for defeating Sephiroth in KH1, so chances are you've already made Ultima just to stand a chance against him. So, like with a lot of other Super Boss blades, this is more of a trophy than anything else. But it's a really cool one. I guess it's also worth mentioning the song this thing is named after, if only because I put Circle of Life on blast for just being the song name. But like, come on, it works way better here. It sounds so much more intimidating. They even make the keychain the one wing to go with it. And I only became an FF7 fan relatively recently, so you know I'm not totally biased in this thing's favor. And just like that, another Aqua Keyblade falls. Get it? Cause it's Stormfall? You get it. They really all cluster together here. This Keyblade has a weird journey through the series. It starts out in the KH2 secret ending, then in Final Mix we see it rusted in the Chamber of Repose next to Aqua's armor. Then we see it in the full KH2 FM secret ending, then we finally get around to BBS where it's Aqua's late game upgrade, and then she replaces it for the secret ending and we never see it again. You can kinda see why it's hard to immediately associate Aqua with just one Keyblade. The past 3 we've talked about all qualify and there's another one coming later, and that's not even bringing up Star Cluster. It's no wonder they're all together here. Those Aqua votes just evened out until they were all in the same place. In any case, Stormfall doesn't feel like nearly as dramatic an upgrade as Terra's or Ven's, but it's longer and the square teeth certainly feel stronger, so it suffices. Maybe the minimal upgrade here is why they felt the need to give Aqua Bright Crest in the final episode. I certainly hope this becomes her standard Keyblade going forward, but Remind showed her with Rainfell, so I'm not counting on it. Maybe these survey results will change their minds. The people clearly prefer Stormfall, so make it happen. Tied for 42nd with 33 votes, we've got the one Keyblade based on a Square property that isn't Final Fantasy. It's Skull Noise based on The World Ends With You. Impressive to see it beat an FF7 blade, but I know the Kiwi fanbase always shows up for these surveys. This blade does the same thing Nanogear does, where it incorporates elements from the whole cast. The hilt has the logo from Beat's beanie, Neku's headphones are the guard, Rhyme's bell necklace is at the bottom, and Shiki's Mr. Mew doll is the keychain. Guess Joshua didn't make the cut. The main body of the Keyblade is just these jet black pieces, but they come together with the teeth forming the Reaper symbol nicely. There is an element to this that isn't really conveyed in the image. That gap in the blade houses what is effectively a sound wave that moves while the Keyblade is in use. A small detail that really completes the design concept. It is called Skull Noise, after all, and music is a big part of the Kiwi identity. Overall, a really solid blade with a lot of fun things for fans to chew on. Tied with that is one of the most infamous Keyblades out there. You either love it or you hate it, it's Riku's car key, Braveheart. This is certainly a choice for him. A part of me believes they went with this design just for the framing of that one scene where Riku stands against the Demon Tide and protects Sora. Think about it, it wouldn't be a clean looking strike if the Keyblade had the usual teeth on it. That said, was it worth this being Riku's default blade moving forward? I don't know, I think it's at least kinda cute. I don't think people's problem truly stems from the car key design, but just that there's nothing else going on. It's a really bare bones key. But I don't know, Riku's supposed to be the calm, cool, and collected one. It kinda makes sense for his Keyblade to be a bit cleaner. It's at least a nice departure from the darkness-heavy designs he's been saddled with. He finally gets a break with a fully light-side Keyblade. I guess I'm still a bit torn on it, because yes, I like the more involved designs, and this definitely is not my preferred Riku blade. But I do think it gets unfairly shit on. And quite a lot of you feel the same way. As I said, it's a love it or hate it situation, and those that love it spoke up. Tied for 40th place with 35 votes, Wayward Wind wins the great battle of the BBS default weapons. Not exactly surprising. Wayward Wind does get an upgrade in BBS, but it wasn't pre-established in Cage 2 like the others were, so Fenn's really been Wayward Wind all the way. No one questioned why he still had it in Cage 3. It's also probably the only Keyblade in the series explicitly designed to be wielded backhanded. Sure, Ven gets exclusive Keyblades and wields them all backhanded, but the way Wayward Wind's grip and teeth are designed is unlike anything else in the series, and it seems to be that way to accommodate Ven's backhand. It makes for a very memorable blade, even if wielding a sword backhanded is almost certainly detrimental and only exists to make anime characters look cool. But hey, it works! I can't imagine Ven's at the top of most people's Wayfinder ranking, but you can't deny that his Keyblade comes out on top. Well, you know, barring one other thing. The other blade tied at this spot is Crystal Snow, which really surprises me. Out of all the Cage 3 Disney blades, I feel like this one gets lost in the shuffle. But looking at it again, it's got one of the most straightforward designs of the bunch, being an elongated ice castle adorned with snowflakes. People complained about things being over-designed, so maybe this was a welcome return to form. The form changes here are also a bit strange, since the first one reuses the claws from Happy Gear, but I suppose the next rank up being the Blizzard Blades saves it. Sora gets to ice skate around while slicing Heartless up with short dual blades, and the finisher is really something to behold with the ice chandelier crashing down. Though we can all admit the Olaf keychain is a little goofy, right? I guess what's most surprising for me here is that people hate this world, unjustly might I add. So it really is surprising that its Keyblade managed to pull ahead of most other Cage 3 blades. I guess it goes to show that this isn't just a world ranking rehash. People have very different associations with the world's Keyblade. We finally get another standalone entry here. At 39th place with 36 votes, can we pretend that airplanes in the night sky are like shooting stars? This is a really bizarre case of a non-BBS Keyblade getting a direct sequel. I guess they didn't have any other ideas for a blade based on Twilight Town, so they just souped up Starseeker and called it a day. I'm not complaining, just observing snarkily. This is also a rare case where Sora is seen canonically wielding something that isn't Kingdom Key in a theater mode cutscene. In San Francisco, he uses it to inspire some new moves in Big Hero 6. I'm sure this was a purely practical choice since Shooting Star's form changes matched up with their powers, but it's still a crazy first for the series. Speaking of those form changes, for his neutral special, he wields a gun. Or two. Does the magic launcher count as a third? They're fun. Definitely not my favorite form changes, blasters are so uncivilized, but I'm glad to see such wildly different combat styles explored in these forms. Well, good standalone entries never last as we have a three-way tie next. There are only a few ties left in the video after this, don't worry. Tied at 36th place with 37 votes is Olympia, the most popular Hercules blade by a mile. First come, first served, I suppose. Interesting fact, this is one of the 3 most used Disney Keyblades in the series, having appeared in Cage 1, Chain of Memories, Coded, and Union Cross, along with 3 Wishes and another we'll get to later. The Union Cross version of this one really goes overkill with the clouds, but I kinda dig it. Guess Hero's Origin wasn't the first Keyblade to have Zeus's face on it. Funny that the Cage 1 render has Hercules' name backwards for some reason. If you couldn't tell, I'm struggling a bit to talk about another one of these Hercules blades because they really are so similar. I respect the OG winning here, but it coming last in the video means it's dealing with my writing at its most fatigued, so let's just move on. The other 2 blades that are tied here both come from Dream Drop. First is the thing everyone should be taking into those final bosses, Dive Wing. For those unaware, you get this Keyblade by getting an A rank on every dive. A pretty easy thing to do if you focus for a bit. So by the time you land in the world that never was, you'll have this amazing upgrade. It only barely outclasses Counterpoint in stats, but you're gonna want every bit of magic and hide and crit rate that you can get. For me, it's a must get whenever I play this game. It might as well be the canon Keyblade for the endgame. It's also got a great design. A gold wing for the teeth and a blue wing for the guard, plus the A rank symbol for the keychain. Between this, Sweet Dreams, and Royal Radiance, they really love designing Keyblades around their random minigames. Dives are probably my favorite minigame adjacent thing in DDD, and it's a genuinely fun time going for the A rank on them knowing this is my reward at the end of it all. I'm probably still a bigger fan of Unbound's design, but I think in general these original Dream Drop blades deserve more credit than they get, so I'm glad to see Divewing make it this far. The other Dream Drop blade in this section is none other than young Xehanort's Keyblade, pretty surprisingly far ahead of its BBS counterpart. The main difference between the two is the colorization and the demon horns added to this one, which are, in a word, goated. I'm a sucker for time travel stuff, and even though Kingdom Hearts tends to handle time travel poorly, I can't help but love a weapon themed around it. We've got two big clocks as the main features here, clock ears in the guard, and of course the hourglass keychain. The hands of the top clock are positioned in such a way to inform the shape of the Keyblade's teeth, which is very cool. The demon horns are an obvious omen to Xehanort's eventual armored form. And let's not forget that this Keyblade can form change. The blue glow of the blade seamlessly transforms into that annoying ass whip that I can never seem to dodge. Both Dream Drop and KH3 really sear this blade into your mind. I know my anxiety goes way up once I see that clock ticking in a way no other fight really manages. Since the Keyblade is preoccupied with turning back time as the clock, I want to say young Xehanort's little lightsabers are a whole separate weapon. I think that also explains why he didn't have his Keyblade in BBS. When he's actively time traveling, he has to settle for those sabers. I just put together that both young Xehanort and Xemnas use lightsabers, so that's neat. Young Xehanort may be a bit of an annoying character, certainly one of the weakest links in the real organization, but you can't deny that his Keyblade is awesome. Alright, next is 35th place with 40 votes. It's time to talk about my beloved FF8 as we get to Lionheart. The KH Wiki says that this is meant to look like Leon's Gunblade. I don't really see it. Like, it's a thin gray blade, sure, but that can't be it, right? There's no gun aspect. How can we say it looks like a gunblade? And obviously the lion head as the teeth throws it off even more. Whatever, the point is it's a Keyblade themed to Leon, our best Final Fantasy friend. Even if you have no connection to FF8, I wish I was there with you, I can still see why you'd get attached to this one. You get access to it quite late in the game, halfway through the Hades Cup. I get that that's the time you fight Leon at his strongest, but I don't know, this totally could have worked as the Pegasus Cup reward if they wanted to do that. It's not like this is any more powerful than the other Keyblades available at this point that you're bound to find before this. Making it a little weaker and available earlier might have helped it stick out more. As is, that sure is a gray Keyblade with a lion on it, but all you big Leon fans get to enjoy your 35th place here. On to another Keyblade from Olympus Coliseum. In 34th place with 44 votes, it's Diamond Dust, the reward for defeating the Ice Titan. So, interestingly, you can make an argument for this being based on Disney, Final Fantasy, or neither. Getting it from Ice Titan immediately associates it with Hercules, but ultimately, it's just a generic icy design. The name Diamond Dust immediately associates it with Shiva's signature move from Final Fantasy, but again, ultimately it's just a generic icy design. So who's to say it's not just a KH original? On my spreadsheet for this video, which you can find in the description, I lumped it with the FF blades just cause that group was lacking and that reference feels the most prominent, but it's fun that you can go any way on this. This is KH1's magic Keyblade to surpass Ultima, granting you 3 MP, more than any other blade in the game. Considering how spammable KH1 magic is, this may very well make it better than Ultima. It's certainly better for fights like the Phantom. The design is very jagged and messy, it feels like it was rapidly frozen over with no order. A cool vibe. And would you look at that, nice of you to finally show up, Pat! Seriously, do you always have to go with all normie picks for these surveys? Well, I guess this is the least popular thing you voted for across all 4 videos, so that's progress. If you've made it this far and don't know who Regular Pat is, I'm honestly impressed. You'd have to not be paying attention at like 10 separate points, including the very beginning. You know this video that you're watching right now? It's based entirely on videos he made. He'll be linked with the other VIPs in the description, but to describe his content to you would feel silly. If you made it this far, you'll like his stuff, trust me. Tied for 32nd place with 47 votes, it's Aqua's Last Stand with Master's Defender. I thought this Keyblade was gonna rank way higher. This thing has been passed down through 5 different major named characters: Brain, Ephemer, Odin, Ericus, and Aqua. Plus arguably Sora, who briefly uses it in KH3 to get to the Realm of Darkness. It's Aqua's primary weapon for the entirety of 0.2 and KH3, as well as the secret episode of BBS. It's the key responsible for transforming the Land of Departure. It's gotta be a top 5 Keyblade on story relevance alone. But I suppose when your most distinguishing feature is the giant letter E forming the teeth, you're not gonna be many people's favorite. Still though, this Keyblade feels symbolic of carrying the torch across the KH series. They make a meal out of Brain passing it down to Ephemer, as well as Aqua taking it on after Ericus' death. Hell, the giant E for Ericus, and ephemer I suppose, is a haunting reminder to Aqua of what she's lost as she stumbles through the darkness. Finally getting to help strike down the man that killed her master with that master's own Keyblade is certainly some poetic justice. It's a shame all that cool stuff can't change the fact that the design is pretty whatever. Still, it managed to beat out all of Aqua's other Keyblades, so there's something to be said for its icon status. Tied with that, we have the only original Keyblade from Recoded, 01. I guess this is what happens when a fanbase has only one target to worry about. The Days fans had to spread votes across 22 Keyblades, the Aqua fans across 4. The Coded crew got to funnel all that appreciation into this one entry. I'm not a big Coded fan personally, but I can appreciate the unique Keyblade mechanics that game had. The whole overclock system, upgrading Keyblades as you fight and giving them abilities that you can situationally take advantage of, is a great way to keep old blades relevant across the game's runtime. It's not something I ever took advantage of myself, but when people gush about Coded's combat, this is one of the big things I see brought up, and it's pretty cool. 01 on its own has some fun theming behind it. It's meant to be a digitized Kingdom Key. Since there was just a plot point about Datasora's Keyblade being a digital copy, 01 feels like the first true original Keyblade conjured by the Datascape, effectively Datasora's true Keyblade. The in-game description says as much, a Keyblade newly wrought within the Datascape, something not based on the digitized journal, but instead something completely new. A neat little thematic choice for a game obsessed with the idea of Datasora as his own distinct guy. It's also a very powerful Keyblade from my understanding, and the name reflecting binary code is cute. In 31st place with 50 votes is Spellbinder, a strong magic Keyblade for how early in the game you could get it. You get this from Merlin after obtaining all 7 basic spells, so it takes a little doing, but if you defeat Opposite Armor, do the Fill Cup, and finish Monstro, you can have this blade for that final stretch of Disney Worlds, which is really nice. It's funny to me that since Chain of Memories had no good way to replicate this unlock criteria, they just treated it as the 100 Acre Wood Keyblade. I guess it is Merlin's book. Speaking of, it's crazy that the Sword in the Stone got a Keyblade in KH1, but not Winnie the Pooh. I suppose it's a bit debatable whether or not this is necessarily a Sword in the Stone blade, but it's got Merlin's color scheme, the guard is clearly meant to reflect Merlin's owl Archimedes, and the spacey symbols up top at the very least scream Magician's Study. In any case, this is a really charming checkpoint in Sora's magical journey. Since Merlin's acting as your magic coach for this game, seeing him acknowledge your progress with what might as well be a training wand is sweet. KH1 never fails to go the extra mile in imparting that sense of adventure, and this Keyblade is one of my favorite reminders of that. Tied while entering the top 30 with 53 votes is Sleeping Lion. Well, it's definitely a more interesting design than Lionheart, but really only marginally. The lion head moved to the top of the blade to make room for the fleur-de-lis. Second time I've had to say that in this video. Though in a stunning turn of events, the Union Cross upgrade for this one makes me like it a whole lot more. The extra angel wings are a nice little bit of flair, but they double as potential references to Renoa, Leon's love interest, and more definitively make the whole thing look more like Leon's ultimate weapon from FF8. The color change also helps with this as the blue hue lines up with it. The funny thing is, you know what that ultimate weapon is called? Lionheart. So they really got their wires crossed here. Look, it's not like this thing has shot way up in my rankings or anything, but I can appreciate the much stronger effort to design a love letter to FF8 that isn't just a silver stick. I always forget that in KH2 this is effectively the Hollow Bastion story Keyblade as you're forced to get it on the way to Space Paranoids 2. So you can end up getting this and Gullwing in very close proximity. That's kinda fun. If this is gonna be the Final Fantasy world, might as well go all in on it. Tied with that is finally Vanitas' Keyblade. Better known as Void Gear, but we went through that whole song and dance already. For some reason, Vanitas always gets associated with gear imagery. I talked about this back in my Kingdom Hearts Symbols video, but why is that? A cog in Xehanort's machine feels like a stretch. Perhaps it's just a grungy mechanical choice to contrast Ven's light and airy feel. There are chains across the blade that lock and place the inner gears, so maybe it's something to do with halting one's own progress? That feels even stretchier than before. Well, in any case, the design works. The color scheme here is very well coordinated with Vanitas' outfit. I don't think any other character gets this kind of visual synergy with their blade. It feels like it's really a part of him. It's definitely a very edgy design, but that's allowed when you're talking about Vanitas. He's edge incarnate, that's his appeal. I'm honestly surprised this doesn't look more like End of Pain or Darkgnaw, they really restrained themselves. Though this does get the matching gazing eyes, I hear they're all the rage. So yeah, that's Vanitas' Keyblade. Remember when Sully scared Vanitas so shitless he dropped this Keyblade in fear? The camera even dramatically cuts to it disappearing. Good times. In 28th place with 54 votes is Starseeker. I've always felt that Mickey getting this Keyblade after KH2 was so random. Not because it's ill-fitting, but just because there's no pomp and circumstance to it in KH2. It's just the Twilight Town Keyblade, almost certainly designed after the Mysterious Tower, which begs some questions about its relation to Fantasia, but whatever. And Sora can't even get a good look at it in the menus because it's stuck on Valor form until you get a third Keyblade. Then all of a sudden, in the final mix secret ending, Mickey's got it. If it is directly based on Fantasia, then it is a cool bit of synergy. Mickey, Yensid's apprentice in KH, is effectively wielding the Sorcerer's Apprentice Keyblade. But again, Sora just had this in KH2. No one was gonna bring up that it used to be the King's. I know I should just accept it as a cool choice, but my brain can't do that. And you know what else bothers me? Why does Mickey have this in Recoded? The timeline here is very simple. Mickey's Keyblade is Starseeker from the start of his journey in Birth by Sleep all the way through 0.2, where at the end of that game he switches it for Kingdom Key D. After that, it should be Kingdom Key D all the way until it breaks and gets replaced with Star Cluster in KH3. So why does he randomly pull out Starseeker for Coded? My crackpot theory is that they only did it because this specific artwork exists with Mickey holding Starseeker in the middle of Days BBS encoded. So they thought it'd be weird for Mickey not to have Starseeker encoded when the art promotes that happening. But that's so dumb because his default is Kingdom Key D in Days, so pick a lane! Anyway, the Keyblade's cool. I don't love the lopsided angling of the blade. It's probably the big reason I prefer Star Cluster, but it definitely gives this a unique identity. Tied for 26th place with 58 votes is Chaos Ripper. At first glance, I'd lump this in with End of Pain and Dark Gnaw as an overly edgy design, but the context here really bolsters this one. First of all, you actually get this in the story, which is huge for people actually knowing what it is. It's also immediately memorable for being the only Keyblade in BBS with a negative magic stat. This works great for Terra, who's terrible at magic anyway, so going all in and bringing Chaos Ripper to the final fights is probably what a lot of us ended up doing. But most importantly for me, I love that this Keyblade unlocks after defeating Ericus. That fight is sort of presented as Terra's point of no return, the tragedy that seems to seal Terra's fate as his master falls and Xehanort's ill intent is revealed. So, in conjunction with that, we unlock what is effectively the Terra Darkness Keyblade. Sure, Dark Gnaw exists if you go looking for it, but Chaos Ripper stares you right in the face, literally since it has an eye, after you just helped slay the Master of Light. Diabolical. It's also gotta be one of the longest Keyblades out there. This thing is tall. All in all, cool Keyblade. And it's all too appropriately tied with Ven's lost memory. How lucky is it that this Keyblade's name, initially just referring to Ven's amnesia regarding Vanitas and Xehanort, would so conveniently also apply to his missing Union Cross memories. I'm surprised Union Cross didn't take full advantage and have this blade in the game, but considering how popular this already is, missing Ache probably deserved the boost more. This design rules. A lot of angel wings emphasizing Ven's pure light status, and a broken heart in the teeth to represent his incomplete state. Those are kind of the two big things with Ven's character, and they nailed showcasing them in a dramatic and fantastic design. If this isn't the Keyblade Ven's looking at as he ponders his choices in the graveyard, you're playing the game wrong. Though I guess canonically, he still enters the battle with Wayward Wind. That's a strong design in its own right, and I'm not surprised it continues to be Ven's default blade, but if the votes are anything to go by, Lost Memory ironically stuck with people way more. Maybe someday, this, Stormfall, and the Terra upgrade we still haven't talked about can all be seen together at last. In 25th place with 61 votes is Lady Luck. Guys, love is real. Pat and RF are the only two VIPs that voted for the Heart Keyblade. Isn't that the cutest thing? This is the third Keyblade to have appeared 4 times across the series. Fascinating how Wonderland appeared so often, and yet they never took a crack at a new Alice in Wonderland blade. They pretty much nailed it the first time, so I get it. A nice sleek design incorporating all 4 card suits. Diamond on the bottom, clubs atop the guard, a heart atop the blade, and the red spade for the teeth that kind of masquerades as a heart, which is convenient for the red-pink Queen of Hearts aesthetic of the whole thing, further emphasized by the keychain being an Ace of Hearts. This is a very late-game Keyblade despite being from the first world. They cheekily hold this one off by locking it behind a white trinity. It's a nice way that KH1 tries to balance out its Keyblades a bit. There are no KH2 abilities or KH3 form changes to distinguish blades, so since the Keyblades need to scale in stats as the game goes along, they hide things like Olympia and Lady Luck until later so they can have higher stats and be genuine options in the endgame. Where Olympia is your high strength option, Lady Luck is your high magic option, matching Spellbinders plus 2 MP. It'll be your best friend until you beat Ice Titan. Despite the name, there aren't really any luck-based mechanics here. You'd expect something special in the critical hit department, but nope, it's magic all the way. I will say, I hate what they do with this for Union Cross. It's just way too much. But for the KH1 Classic, it's a shining example of how well these simpler designs work. In 24th place with 63 votes, cue the silly music, it's Metal Chocobo. Much like Lionheart, I question how much this thing actually resembles the weapon it's based on. The KH Wiki says it's inspired by Cloud's Buster Sword. How so? Because it's a big slab of metal? This feels more like a chunky Lego than the Buster Sword. If anything, you could argue this was maybe carved out of a big Buster Sword. Otherwise, I ain't buying it. You get this from defeating Cloud in the Hercules Cup, so I understand the association, but I just see a big metal club with a chocobo hanging off of it. That's the real star of the show here. I have to imagine a lot of votes for this are coming from big Final Fantasy VII fans, or people who really like the feeling of this bulky weapon on a roster of rather flimsy blades. This thing is thick, so much so that it goes all in on strength and reduces your magic. It is immediately outclassed by Olympia if you just finish the cup you're already doing, but this thing's got at least one niche use as the ideal tool for acing Tigger's pot. The longer the blade, the faster you can hit the nut. I need to end this section. In 23rd place with 64 votes, we get the King's Last Stand with Kingdom Key D. It's a color-swapped Kingdom Key. The blade is gold while the guard is silver. Appropriate seeing as this ends up as the Keyblade of the Realm of Darkness, where the Kingdom Key is of the Realm of Light. So they're two sides of the same coin. Fun fact, did you know this thing was planned to be in both BBS and Dream Drop? Yeah, I'm finding this out right now from the KH Wiki. It would have been called Light Seeker, and only Ven and Riku would have had access to it. That's wacky wild. Also kinda explains why Ven gets fewer exclusive Keyblades than Terra or Aqua. He was meant to get this. I suppose if we want to use this ourselves, we'll just have to settle for Mickey saving us in KH2. Or Days Mission Mode, I guess. Despite Mickey's continuous Keyblade rebranding, it's hard not to always associate him with this thing. The last KH1 scene makes such a strong impression as Mickey appears for the only time in the game to whip this thing out and help you seal Kingdom Hearts. I know Mickey was only in the game in such a limited capacity because of Disney restrictions, but I think they really got the most out of that limitation here. There is no more rewarding feeling of gravitas than seeing that little fucker finally hop on screen after a whole game of searching, and this Keyblade is forever associated with that incredible moment. It's also forever associated with spamming Pearl on Zaldin to finally make it through that fight. In 22nd place with 67 votes is Ever After. We're getting into the really popular KH3 stuff now, and I guess a lot of people really got attached to the Mirage Staff form change. In fact, someone just wrote in a vote for Mirage Staff. That vote went here in case that person is wondering. It is such a unique way to play. It immediately evokes Wisdom form with Sora sliding along the ground and shooting magic from a distance, but it really shines when paired with the clone mechanic. As Sora dodges, he'll make light clones of himself that will also shoot at enemies. So if you position yourself well, you can rain down an intense barrage against your foes, cutting through HP like it's tinfoil. And that's paired with a cool design based on a fan favorite Disney movie. I've never really understood the rabid fanbase Tangled has garnered, but I do love it, and this Keyblade executes a perfectly simple concept very well. The blade is Rapunzel's tower. Alright, wrap it up, that's pretty much all you needed. The Corona Sun as the teeth is a nice touch, as well as the frying pan keychain and golden flower on the hilt. You really couldn't ask for a better Tangled Keyblade. In 21st place with 70 votes, it's the most popular Keyblade originating from Dream Drop Distance, the lovingly fan-named Gayblade. Its official name is the Combined Keyblade, but come on, it's the Gayblade. In fact, 7 people wrote in the Gayblade because they did not know this thing's official name. It's only up this high because people associate it with Soriku. In an effort to avoid any more shipping discussion, I will now be discussing this Keyblade in the context of Sora and Riku's platonic relationship. But you all know. This blade first appears as part of the World That Never Was Reality Shift, where Sora wields it as part of Nightmare's End, while Riku's is Mirage Split. We got 2 or 3 write-in votes specifying one half of this blade, but I lumped them all in here. The shift shows a flickering mirage of the other character to showcase that their unified strength is what's wielding the blade. In KH3, it appears again as Sora and Riku work together to defeat Anti-Aqua, so safe to say it's representative of their bond. Interestingly, the keychain is a Paopu fruit, which they've only ever really associated with Kairi, so maybe it's meant to be a symbol that, even when it's just the boys, they still hold Kairi close to their hearts. The rest of the design features some beautiful stained glass imagery, a heart, a lucky emblem, and Sora's half is light while Riku's half is dark. Of course this was the favorite DDD blade. Dream Drop is very much the Sora and Riku game, diving deeper into their relationship and how well they work together. So to have this physical manifestation of their bond, especially one that can continue to be utilized in future games, is such a strong representation of what makes Dream Drop special. Shame that it couldn't crack the top 20, but I'd say it's still a fantastic showing. Speaking of the top 20, we have the final tie of the video, only solo entries from here on out. Just barely making it with 71 votes is Divine Rose. This and Spellbinder were the two KH1 examples of Disney Keyblades with no associated world. I don't know why they felt Beauty and the Beast deserved special treatment over the other Princess of Heart properties, but I guess Beast as a party member pulls a lot of weight, and they wanted some kind of catharsis for reuniting him with Belle. It also means this is the only Keyblade you get from Hollow Bastion that isn't just lying around in a chest, so this naturally got to be the Hollow Bastion blade for Chain of Memories. I mean, Hollow Bastion is basically a Disney World in that game, so it makes some kind of sense. The big story with this blade is how much stronger they made it in Final Mix for no reason. Its power is only rivaled by Ultima Weapon. That's insane. But I guess the drawback is that it's stubby. That definitely holds it back from being one of my favorite Keyblades, even though the design works well here. The rose growing out of the blade is really nice, though I'm not huge on the jagged stained glass textures on the guard. But the whole aesthetic of the blade matches up perfectly with Laurium. Isn't that crazy that they took this Disney Keyblade and gave it to a relevant story character? I kinda wish we got stuff like this more often, it's fun. Interestingly, a lot of people wrote that they especially loved this blade because of the Union Cross upgrade, and I can totally see why. The single rose has become a garden and the thorns have gotten more pronounced, but don't take away from the elegance of the blade. It's close between this and Sleeping Lion, but it might be my favorite Union Cross upgrade of an old blade. I don't know if any of these VIP voters care about the Union Cross version, but I do know that it's VRage Analyst's first appearance in the video, and that's the best transition I've got. VRage, or Van if you're cool like I am, makes great analytical essays on YouTube about games that I despise. Sorry, Danganronpa just brings out the despair in me. She's also responsible for anime analysis, our Zero Escape stream highlights, a Twitch channel where she pretty much exclusively streams Uma Musume, and actually, the next entry on our list. I don't know how both of Van's lowest picks managed to tie like this, but next up we've got the Keyblade of Heart, famous for being the only Keyblade designed for stabbing. Created from the hearts of 6 pure lights and needing one more to be fully complete, the Keyblade of Heart sits at the climax of KH1's story, the duel between two Keyblade wielders for the fate of all worlds. For those who played the original PS2 version of KH1, the cutscene showcasing this blade is seared into your memory. The fight featuring it was your insurmountable wall, and your reward was instant heartbreak as Sora put on a smile and drove it into his chest, releasing Kairi's heart and destroying this Keyblade for good. It really is designed for this moment though. No other Keyblade has a sharp point like that at the top. They really had to get creative with the teeth in order to still make it look like a Keyblade while leaving room for the stabbing. But it works since it's meant to be incomplete. You can even make out part of the heart shape that should form. Oh, I suppose it's a bit rude to suggest it was only designed for Sora's stabbing. Maleficent had to get stabbed by the damn thing too. I always forget that this is how she transforms into a dragon in this game. Weird. You can't get a much simpler design than this. Solid black with a red handle, not even a keychain for some spice. But it works perfectly for the dark, intimidating weapon this needs to be. In 18th place with 72 votes, it's the Keyblade. Some say Kai, but the meaning is the same. In case you're wondering, if I had counted the votes for the incomplete Keyblade towards this, it would go up one spot. So we're not losing a whole lot here. But yeah, lore-wise, this is the original. The thing every Keyblade on this list is based on. In reality, this is very obviously two Kingdom Keys with a lot of extra flourishes. But doesn't it look so epic and cool, you guys? Yeah, I think this design is kinda silly, but there's no denying the immense story significance of this thing. It's the whole reason Xehanort did what he did. The 7 lights and 13 darknesses needed to clash so Xehanort could get his grubby little hands on this thing and purge the world. Or I guess you could make a lame one just by having Van and Vanitas fight. According to the KH Wiki, even the one we see in KH3 isn't technically real. The truest Keyblade should only form when the Princesses of Heart and 13 Darknesses, with a capital D, reunite. Well, that sounds like a problem for the Lost Master arc. In the meantime, this Data Xehanort fight certainly makes his Keyblade feel real. It could do so much crazy shit that I have no chance of surviving. Xehanort doesn't have an extremely intimidating figure. He's quite old, you see. So these fights almost feel like the Keyblade jerking him around, power so immense it's able to channel itself through this brittle vessel. Perhaps one day we'll get a chance to properly wield it ourselves, but that might just break any game it's in. In 17th place with 76 votes, it's finally time for the last Union Cross Keyblade. Starlight was always going to come out on top, partially due to a small pool of options, but also because this is the default blade that everyone knows, and it managed to get into KH3. I know for me, the standout moment for this blade is that sequence against the Demon Tide, where Sora Keyblade surfs on one to win the day. It's such an incredible love letter to all the Union Cross fans. The blade itself is very simple. It's basically a recolored Kingdom Key with a star for the teeth, but it works perfectly for Union Cross, which has an obsession with Lux, these star-shaped particles of light. The simplicity of the initial form also helps highlight Union Cross's Keyblade upgrade system. Starlight gets quite the glow up with the golden star, spiraling blade, and a wealth of sparkles by the time it hits its final form. Interestingly, most of the Union Cross main cast doesn't get the fully upgraded Starlight. They get this middle tier that keeps some of the grandiose elements while being much less flashy. What's crazy is that this specific upgrade isn't even available to the player in Union Cross. It was only in Key since they removed a couple intermediary upgrades in the jump to Union Cross. But I guess Ephemer, Scold, and Strelitzia just got stuck with this design. At least Strelitzia has a decent excuse for not getting the chance to upgrade. Though it seems that the player may canonically get the next upgrade, seeing as Missing Link has a whole moment where the player uses a rusted version of it. Maybe we'll get to see that in an actual official game release someday. In the end, this Keyblade is the representative for all the blood, sweat, and tears poured into the mobile side of the KH universe. I can't say I was ever that invested in it all, but I have nothing but high hopes for these elements of the series going forward, and I'm glad Starlight has had enough staying power to crawl its way into the top 20. In 16th place with 82 votes, it's Bond of Flame. Got it memorized? This is like Dual Disc if I didn't hate the source material. Putting Axel's two chakrams as the teeth and guard of a Keyblade, a surefire way to become a fan favorite. Don't you know how popular he is? Shame that my guy had to die in order to get this Keyblade to us. But maybe it was worth it, cause this fire boost lets me absolutely shred through mobs and a lot of super bosses. Data Vexen doesn't stand a chance. Appropriate seeing as Axel took care of the original. Other fun details here are the stretched out 8 connecting the chakrams as well as the, count them, 8 different spikes. Axel's really got his brand on lockdown. It makes sense that future Axel blades just couldn't measure up. They already had their perfect little script, so of course they'd bungle the sequels. Fun fact, this thing managed to appear in both Recom and Days as Sora's Pandora gear. I guess it's part of a themed set of organization weapons, since it goes with the Lexius Club and Vexen Shield that Donald and Goofy get. But still, seeing it appear this often means someone clearly loved putting this thing in everything. Of course, it's all a byproduct of Axel's own staying power. He's certainly in my top 5 KH characters, and no amount of cheesy fourth wall breaks is realistically gonna change that. I'm sure he's so flattered to see his blade all the way up here. Or maybe he's judging us all for playing with a bunch of swords. In 15th place with 83 votes is Destiny's Embrace, Kairi's Keyblade. I was really hoping this one would make it higher. I suppose it's a bit of a meme that Riku just hands this to Kairi in KH2 with no pomp and circumstance, but despite how she got it, this is Kairi's Keyblade and I think it works really well for her. The name alone feels very indicative of Kairi's journey. As a pure light, she's had this greater destiny looming over her, and taking on this Keyblade and joining the fight is her finally embracing that destiny. It's got a gorgeous color scheme with that red to yellow gradient across the blade and the streak of ocean blue on the guard. The Palpu as her keychain further emphasizes her connection to the fruit as we talked about earlier, but also ties her closely with her new home of Destiny Islands. Again, an embrace of destiny. And we of course need to talk about the vines growing up into the flowers forming the teeth. It's never really difficult to make a plant motif work in these Keyblades, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And something I'm noticing for the first time in this moment, the guard forms a heart. Like the Kingdom Hearts heart, the symbol of the series and the thing her Princess of Heart status helps open. It's a beautiful Keyblade. And when we finally got to use it at its full potential in Remind, oh, it was so much fun. I love the way she throws it and warps to it. She has such free-flowing and fun animations along with dazzling shot locks and situation commands. Sure, we got to use it as Aqua and BBS, but that was nothing compared to KH3. Yeah, this Keyblade deserves better than what it got, but it's hard to complain about our top 15. In fact, this is the last Keyblade to not have any VIP voters representing it, so this feels like a real new tier of popularity. Oh, one last thing, I got one meme vote for the key Kairi used to key Xehanort's car. I put that vote here, it felt appropriate. In 14th place with 88 votes and the most popular Disney Keyblade from KH1, we have Pumpkinhead. Yeah, fair enough. I'm probably more partial to Spellbinder or Lady Luck, but for one with raw damage output, you can't go wrong with Pumpkinhead. This has gotta be the peak of KH1 design simplicity, but it still has the skeleton bow tie on the hilt for a bit of charm. The idea here seems to be very skeletal. At least that's why I think it's so skinny. It certainly screams Halloween with the bat for the teeth and jack-o'-lantern for the keychain. I'm more of a Christmas person, but I respect the effort here. Nightmare Before Christmas has the sort of cult following that would obviously propel something like this up. I'm sure you've all noticed that the other Nightmare Before Christmas blade has yet to appear. But even without the brand recognition, this is a fun, spooky blade, and I'm sure plenty appreciate it just for that. In 13th place with 94 votes is our most popular Final Fantasy Keyblade, Fenrir. This Keyblade has a higher strength stat than KH2's Ultima, which is crazy. It's the only numbered game to do that. This blade also has negative combo to get your finishers out faster, so clearly it's designed for maximum power, fitting since you can only get it after defeating Sephiroth. Weird that you have to beat him, then go talk to Cloud, then come back, and only then do you get the Keyblade. It makes it so you never have to actually collect the blade to complete the journal or get the Platinum Trophy. Weird. But I'm sure most of us followed Sephiroth's instructions and got this incredible reward. Unlike most of these Super Boss blades, this one is actually useful outside of being a trophy, since Sephiroth is one of the easier post-game challenges in Final Mix. Bringing Fenrir into the Data Organization or Lingering Will is a fair strategy, not to mention negative combo's usefulness for a couple random journal requirements in the Twilight Town jobs. As far as design goes, this is the reason I don't think the car key is an inherent negative for people. Fenrir clearly makes it work. Of course, the blade's themed around a motorcycle, so perhaps it's more fitting here. Love that it's bandaged to reference Cloud's KH sword. According to the KH wiki, the Union Cross upgrade emphasizes the connection to Cloud's ride even more. Note that when I say Cloud's ride, I mean from the Advent Children movie, which KH2 is obsessed with. Guess Nomura picks favorites. And you all do too. That's the premise of the video. I'd definitely lean towards something sillier for my favorite FF blade, looking at Gullwing or Moogle Glory, but you all came in with the cool vote and I can't stop you. I mean, I could, but I won't. In 12th place with exactly 100 votes is Master Xehanort's Keyblade, better known as No Name. I've also seen the Gazing Eye thrown around, but not nearly as commonly. Isn't it so upsetting that this just missed 13th place? Maybe I should move those Raiden votes to the other No Name. Well, too late now. I talked a lot about the lineage of Master's Defender, but this probably goes even deeper. Starting at the Master of Masters, then Luxu, then whatever this brain situation is, then Xehanort, then by extension Terranort, and now back around to Luxu. This Keyblade has seen some shit. Apparently, that's its purpose, seeing as the Master of Masters stuck his eye in there. Little by little, this thing has filled the pages of the Book of Prophecies. For better or for worse. I guess we'll see in the Lost Master arc. But even just as Xehanort's main weapon, this thing is gnarly. Surprised I didn't see the goat armor coming, as this has more devil imagery all over it. The jet black coloration with the white markings really pops in the scariest way. This thing has attended so many major battles, it's hard to keep track of. There's the clash with Ericus in Dark Road, and BBS flashbacks. There's the end of BBS with Xehanort and Xehanort. There's the No Heart Super Boss. Terranort keeps using it in KH3. We even got a meme vote specifying the 13 extra no-names from the finale. Yes, it was arbitrary when I stuck meme votes like this in with the regular blade. Barring the Kingdom Key itself, this is the blade that carries by far the most story weight in the series. Hell, it might even give Kingdom Key a run for its money. That loses a lot of steam after KH1. This is probably the blade I'm most excited to see going forward. Only time will tell if it's worthy of that excitement. Just missing the top 10, in 11th place with 114 votes is the most popular Keyblade from Birth by Sleep, Ends of the Earth. Well, okay, it doesn't technically originate from Birth by Sleep, but it's most easily associated with that game. No Name has that same caveat, so if you want a true BBS original, you're dropping down to the Keyblade, which feels wrong. This is easily the best of the upgraded story blades, and it was never any contest. Because while this may be Terra's Keyblade, it is first and foremost Lingering Will's Keyblade. We all remember stepping through that portal in Disney Castle and watching this thing tear us to shreds. It feels enormous with that wide blade and chunky set of teeth. But it wasn't just the blade bludgeoning us, no, it was a whip and glider and giant cannon. This is the Keyblade that established form changes. We don't get what we have in KH3 without it. It's funny how BBS has to tie those moves to other things. The glider is just for traversal, the cannon is a shot lock. I'm not sure if the whip ever makes an appearance. Someone can let me know in the comments. Oh, and when my guy shows up to fight Terranort in KH3, oh, that's so good! Seeing him use all those moves against him was so satisfying. And then when Terra comes back, he downgrades back to Earthshaker. What the hell? I really underestimated how well this would do on the form. I expected people to not really know the distinct names of these blades. But I guess the KH fanbase has a special kind of brain rot for Keyblades. Very few people confused this with Earthshaker. Everyone knew exactly who the GOAT was. Alright, on to the top 10. Only Keyblades from the numbered titles remain. These next 3 are a significant jump up in votes. but I was surprised how close together they were. It came down to a handful of write-ins to determine the ordering here. So if I kept the form open longer, these three could have easily swapped around. With 150 votes at number 10 is the Ultima weapon from KH1. This surprised me because whenever a write-in didn't specify a game, I gave that vote to KH1 Ultima. I also added in a vote someone had for Coded's Ultima since it's the same design, so some might say this got unfairly boosted. But I guess the OG is too old school now. I say about a top 10 favorite Keyblade. She is beauty, she is grace, she is KH1 Ultima weapon. The sword as the base, the gold adornments, the crowned heart as the teeth, the strongest stats in the game. Nothing compares to the achievement of finally holding this thing in your hands. To this day, I'd credit this as the hardest Ultima to get. You can't get all the materials for it until you're knocking at Ansem's door thanks to the Neo Shadow Stormy Stones, so this is exclusively for final fights and super bosses. There are a lot of obnoxious minigame heartless to please before Ultima weapon even shows up on your synthesis list. On top of that, regular synth grinding in KH1 requires a lot of patience and a lot of Bambi. It's a struggle in every game, but the slower movement and smaller enemy pools of KH1 just add more time to the grind than there is in KH2 and 3. But you know what? Good. It should be a great effort to get this thing. It's basically a free ride through the endgame and a massive advantage against the likes of Sephiroth and the Unknown. It better take some goddamn elbow grease to get. Would the achievement really be the same if I didn't miss the jet balloon drops 5 times before finally getting it? Don't answer that. Especially you, Greeny. The reward for the most basic VIP voter goes to you. All of your picks are in the top 10. In case you don't know, that green fella third wheeling up there is Greeny the Goblin, your friendly neighborhood Greeny the Goblin with no relation to Willem Dafoe. He's got a great Twitch and YouTube channel where he does all kinds of stuff. Last year's big thing was his game show series that I participated in, but right now I'm just hoping for more Shadow of the Colossus speedruns from him. We're also supposed to play Sonic Shuffle at some point. Go check him out. He's a really great guy, even if his Keyblade opinions are boring. So every Ultima is sorta living in the aftershocks of KH1's, an incredible foundation that KH2 and 3 somehow managed to surpass. But by how much, you might ask? Well, at number 9, with only 3 more votes, is Wheel of Fate, the most popular Disney blade from KH3. For once, I agree with the masses. It's my favorite too. This is easily the largest gap between Keyblades based on the same property. As a reminder, Follow the Wind managed 2 votes. This got 76 times as many. It's really got all the makings of a perfect Keyblade. It's still definitely a busy KH3 design, but it's on the simpler side. It's a ship's mast fashioned into a Keyblade, with the titular wheel on top as the teeth. That's really all there is to it, but it's such a perfect concept. My favorite thing is the keychain. It's the key to the dead man's chest. That's such a specific item that really isn't emphasized in the world at all, but is such a cool reference and works great as a small token for the end of the weapon. A lot of other KH3 keychains are on the goofier side between Olaf, the toy alien, the frying pan, Boo's costume, the Anyone Can Cook book, but this is a perfect balance between being an important item from the source material while not being a distracting design element. And all of that's before we get to the real pièce de résistance. This is a KH3 blade, so it's got a banger form change. The High Wind on its own is already a 10 out of 10. A giant spear is a really fun and unique weapon to swing around, the only thing in Sora's lineup to emphasize long-reach stabbing. But oh, the Storm Flag has so much aura! The trail of red as this whips around, it's straight out of Persona 5. And the finisher where Sora just stances as water tentacles destroy everything around him. It's so cool! I am like Sora, I inherently like pirate stuff. This makes me feel like a fucking scallywag. I am so thrilled to see it in the top 10 along with quite a few other VIP voters. Guess this is my new personal pirate crew. Yo-ho and a bottle of rum. Okay, I won't throw you for a loop again. The third blade in this 150-ish vote group is actually another Ultima. At number 8, with 155 votes, is Ultima Weapon from KH2. This honestly disappoints me. Even with all the favors I gave KH1 Ultima, KH2's managed to beat it by 5 votes. Maybe it's weird that I'm disappointed. Blue's more my color anyway, and I do prefer KH2 as a game over KH1. But this is easily my least favorite Ultima of the 3. The design is nice, but doesn't pop like the gold or red do. It's comparatively very subdued. BBS and Dream Drop copying the blue also means this one blends in with those two for me. On top of that, this is the weakest Ultima has ever been. There's a required Disney blade with the same strength stat as this Ultima weapon. That should not be allowed. Fenrir surpasses its strength, Fatal Crest and Winter's Proof surpass its magic, and its ability is MP Stega, which is nice, but not really ultimate, you know? It's still a strong Keyblade, but with how much abilities define Keyblade usability in this game, there are so many times where it's just better to use something else. Maybe that's a positive thing for the game as a whole, but it does make this Ultima stand out far less. Oh, and it's by far the least satisfying one to get. KH2 introduces Orichalcum Plus materials, 7 items you have to collect in order to synth Ultima. They are pathetically placed, you can get most of them just from doing all the worlds. There's one at the end of Atlantica, 100 Acre Wood, and Space Paranoids. There's one in a chest at the Sunset Terrace in Twilight Town, so as long as you explore a little on the 3rd visit, you'll find that. There's another right outside the castle that never was, so on the way to the end. One's a reward for completing the Goddess of Fate Cup, which is pretty easy to do, though you may not notice that it's unlocked since it'll be between Xemnas fights. The last one is from collecting every kind of synthesis material, the one decent challenge in this bunch since it'll require satisfying a mushroom, exploring the Cavern of Remembrance, and defeating a couple absent silhouettes. All of these should have been locked behind tasks like that, not just basic completion of optional worlds. The fact that you'll likely just run into 5 of these is really lame. Since recipes don't unlock the way they do in KH1, the material grind here is minimal. You'll have to level up your Moogle a smidge, but it's pretty mindless. All in all, it's just not a very satisfying process for a reward that isn't even as good as KH1s or 3s. At the end of the day, it's still Ultima Weapon, it's cool. I'm just really surprised to see it beat KH1s. This is the forgettable one to me. But KH2's the fan favorite game, so maybe I shouldn't be surprised. I'll just be glad there's still another Ultima to talk about. But you all know what's really KH2's ultimate weapon, right? At number 7 with 176 votes is the most popular Disney Keyblade in the series, Decisive Pumpkin. This matches Ultima's strength, but it also comes with a combo boost, giving it a slight edge on the ground. Plus, you just get this from the story, no hassle. Why wouldn't you bring this to the endgame? A weak magic stat? Clearly it did not dissuade people. I'm sure we all watched as Sora and Riku clutch Jack Skellington's beard to deliver the final laser to Xemnas. It's a canon event. The KH2 speedrun books it to Halloween Town as soon as it can, and let me tell ya, it's not to maximize Christmas cheer. Though that might be why I gravitated to this thing. Pumpkinhead is great as a Halloween Keyblade, but this is great as a Nightmare Before Christmas Keyblade. It represents both halves of this holiday hodgepodge so heartily. A reindeer of bones as the guard, Jack in his Santa outfit on the hilt, and of course the candy cane snake creature for the blade and teeth. Even Zero as the keychain, the ghost dog with Rudolph's shining nose, is a microcosm of this dichotomy. It's the visual of the corrupted Christmas that makes this movie so distinct. The jaggedness of the snake and the reindeer also help evoke a more specifically Tim Burton design sense. In short, it looks like it's straight out of the movie, and that's the greatest compliment I can give. Now these next 2 Keyblades were also neck and neck for a long time. In fact, if not for the write-ins, this one would have ranked higher. At number 6 with 208 votes is 2 Become 1. It's all in the name here. This Keyblade is representative of that moment where Roxas finally accepts himself as part of Sora and the 2 become whole again. If you have ever been invested in the story of Roxas, this Keyblade probably speaks to you in some way. The black and white color scheme obviously evokes a mix of darkness and light. The checkerboard on the handle matches the one on Roxas' outfit. The Nobody sigils on the hilt, and Roxas' cross is the keychain. Also, there are spikes. I love how this design lines up with its ability, Light and Darkness. This blade, when equipped, makes it so only anti-form and final form are available. Hell, before this Keyblade, there was no easy way to unlock final form. You just had to get lucky in base KH2. Wouldn't be surprised if people thought final form was a final mix edition. It's hard not to directly associate this Keyblade with that form. The idea behind both is granting you Roxas' power. They're basically a package deal. And it's all a reward for beating one of the hardest and most memorable story bosses in Kingdom Hearts. Some might even say it's the most popular battle in the series, but there's no way to prove that without conducting some kind of survey and meticulously counting the results to present in some kind of video. I'll admit right now that I'm not a huge Roxas guy. Weirdly, he's the black sheep of the Days trio to me. But if there's one thing that even I can get behind, it's this moment and this Keyblade being perfectly done. But alas, it is not the most popular Keyblade from KH2. It's the most popular one that Sora can equip, but at number 5 with 218 votes, Riku wins with Way to the Dawn. Oh, and would you look at that, the entire main trio from Espurr's Ace Attorney streams is here to celebrate. You want to talk about a Keyblade that perfectly encapsulates the conflict between light and darkness while actually having some goddamn color? Soul Eater has evolved, now its bat wings are accompanied by well-placed angel wings. That's really the extent of it. After being saddled with darkness for so long, Riku's wish to walk the road to dawn has finally manifested. and may I just say, it's a killer design. There's something very satisfying about the bat wing still taking up most of the blade, but the important part actually dealing the damage is the little angel wing on the teeth. Darkness may be louder, but it's light that'll send them packing. Which tracks, since it's Sora who borrows this blade to deal the final wallop against Xemnas. Dual wielding this with Kingdom Key is so cool. It's the Gay Blade before the Gay Blade. So it is really dumb that Way to the Dawn breaks in KH3, right? It's not a huge deal, Riku still got to use this blade all throughout Dream Drop, but it does feel sorta anticlimactic for him to just lose it after all the growth it represented. I do like how it acts as a bit of connection to Riku Replica, especially since he also used Soul Eater, and again, I really don't mind Braveheart, but this fits Riku so well. Whatever, a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts, I guess. I'm certainly happy to crown this the KH2 champion. I will take edgy Darkness Boy Riku over edgy Nobody Boy Roxas any day. With that, we finally get to the one that's been MIA. With a staggering 288 votes, over 100 votes more than its predecessors, the most popular Keyblade from KH3, number 4 is the newest Ultima weapon. And the VIPs are going wild! 6 of us agreeing on this is crazy. This is the only time Pat and I have been aligned on something, and somehow the 3rd time G and I have agreed. He's got good taste. But wow, what an insane blowout. I think we all know what the top 3 blades are going to be, and there was never any chance of this beating them. But KH3 Ultima getting so far ahead of everything else was not on my bingo card. I mean, just going off of how people feel about the numbered titles, you'd think anything labeled with KH3 would be dead in a ditch somewhere. To be clear, I'm thrilled. This is the best timeline. I'm just surprised I'm living in it. What a victory for everything we've been talking about regarding KH3 Keyblades. After all, the thing surely allowing this to rise to the top is the form change. Never has an Ultima weapon made me feel more powerful than when I was floating around and commanding like 20 swords into my foe's face. The shot lock, a screen clearing light explosion. The finisher, I cannot see anything because the effects of the sword slashes are taking up the entire screen. This is the way kids felt wielding KH1 Ultima fully realized. A raw power fantasy. The supreme Keyblade indeed. And this is the way you do Orichalcum Plus. You've got to scour every corner of this game if you want this power. Flans, lucky emblems, hidden treasures in Frozen Slider, an unmarked island in the Caribbean, and yes, absolutely a Gummy Boss Gauntlet. I don't even mind the postcard one. You want ultimate power? Get lucky, fucker, it's a skill. My personal favorite is the one in the final world, because you have no reason to think you can go back there. Unless you're like me and diligently check the treasure page in your Gummy phone. I felt like a genius noticing the blank there, finding the portal back, and being fittingly rewarded. Also, this maintains the synth requirement from KH2. You need to obtain 58 of the 60 synthesis materials in order to unlock the Ultima weapon recipe, but note that 2 materials are locked behind the postgame. So you can get Ultima weapon for all the final fights in the Keyblade graveyard, but you gotta strap in and find everything if you want it. Good. A difficult quest and an ultimate reward, that's what the Ultima weapon should be. As you've probably realized, all our remaining entries originate from KH1, so for the first time in survey video history, a KH3 entry has conquered every KH2 entry. The world is healing. Well, there are only a couple ways this final 3 can shake out, so let's just get the least surprising part out of the way and reveal that number 3 with 365 votes is Kingdom Key. This thing is synonymous with the word Keyblade. It is truly what all others are based on. It was impossible for me not to name drop it throughout this video. The branding is too strong with this one. It feels sorta silly to discuss its design. You can't get any simpler than the base model. But even the small detail of the teeth's negative space forming a crown is such a striking choice. There's a good reason this is such major iconography for Kingdom Hearts. Hell, it's what Smash led with when revealing Sora. That got a vote, by the way. Someone specified Kingdom Key as wielded by Mario. Some other silly votes I lumped in here were Kingdom Key as seen modded into FF14, Kingdom Key Plus, which is just the upgrade naming convention from Days, and Kingdom Key as the reward for 100% in Disney Infinity 3.0, which is absolutely my shit. I own all those figures. I remember unlocking that Keyblade and thinking, oh, it's that weapon from those Disney games I should really check out sometime. Yeah, I got into KH kinda late, but isn't it crazy that I recognize this thing without having ever played Kingdom Hearts? That's its staying power. It's present in the gaming zeitgeist. But enough generalities. KH fans took this survey, so who cares about the rest of the gaming world? For us, this was the Keyblade for a time. There Can't Be Two Keyblade Masters has aged very poorly, but back then the Kingdom Key's choice in its master was a pivotal moment. The wooden sword was one half of the My Friends Are My Power scene, but Kingdom Key was the other, far more prominent half. It went on to land in Roxas's hands during the bonkers KH2 prologue, and Shion's in Days. It's the staple of the Unchanging Armor run. It got a fresh new style in KH3 where it could activate second form, and it's looking like it'll get to do even crazier stuff in KH4. It's the Kingdom Key. Iconic is an understatement. And just like that, only 2 remain. It was always going to be these 2 at the top. It was just a matter of what order they'd be in. So, what's it going to be? Will darkness prevail and light expire? Or is there more to light than meets the eye? Nothing left to do but rip the band-aid off. And number 2 with 447 votes, welcome Oblivion. Y'all keep surprising me. After I sifted through so many edgy Keyblades, I was really confident this would be number 1. It's an awesome design. The chain taking up the negative space of the blade, the black bat wings for the guard, the kanji for darkness as the teeth, even the crown as the keychain. This Keyblade is meant to be representative of Riku in KH1, so I've seen it theorized that Sora's crown necklace might have been an old gift from Riku to Sora that is now symbolically acting as the keychain in order to match the other Keyblade's keychain. I really like that, at least as a headcanon. Of course, I wouldn't blame you if you didn't realize this was a Riku Keyblade. According to the Ultimania, it was planned for Riku to gift the Black Crown to Sora, but it never came to fruition. So instead you just get Oblivion from a chest in the Grand Hall where you fought him. Kinda lame, but at least that association can be rectified somewhat by Riku getting to use Oblivion against Roxas in Days. Also, in KH2 Encoded, you basically get the Keyblade directly from Riku. No room for misinterpretation. KH3, the special little snowflake that it is, gives you Oblivion after completing Critical Mode, which I really don't like. I am KH3's biggest defender, but locking a Keyblade behind a difficulty setting is so lame. I suppose they wanted you to really earn double form, but if the options are Critical Mode or Lucky Emblems, of course I'm gonna go Lucky Emblems. Well, we've had our fun here, but it's already getting hard to dance around the fact that this Keyblade is part of a pair. At number 1 with 521 votes, the most popular Keyblade in Kingdom Hearts is Oathkeeper. It really wasn't close, huh? Not quite the over 100 vote blowout of the Ultimas, but a difference of 74 votes is still a lot. I can only imagine that actually getting the scene of this keychain being gifted helped it out a lot. At the start of the game, you see Kairi making a lucky charm out of shells, and right before the game's ending, she gives it to you as a way of showing that she'll always be with you. And with it comes a promise that you'll meet again to give it back to her. An oath to keep, if you will. Where Riku is currently steeped in darkness, Kairi is here to be the light. KH1 does the integration of story and game mechanics like no other game. We've never gotten anything truly close to the magic of reuniting with Kairi and getting a tangible and emotionally resonant gift that we can then use in combat. No other game has really even tried. KH1 loves to show keychains being given to you, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Every other game just does that end-of-world pop-up, but KH1 wants these to be part of the world, and Kairi's gift to you is the culmination of that. It's that extra bit of magic KH1 is so good at. The Keyblade's also very pretty. I love the 2 blades combining together at the top to form a heart, and the multicolored kanji for light as the teeth. And of course, the angel wings on the guard to contrast Oblivion's bat wings. These Keyblades do work far better as a pair. They complement each other so well. It's all light and darkness at the end of the day, but it's only one of the central themes of the series. I suppose that just leaves one blonde elephant in the room. Roxas wielding these is fine. It's cool even. I like that a character takes these 2 Keyblades that are clearly designed to go together and wields them both at the same time. It only emphasizes their synergy. But why Roxas though? I mean, sure, he exists in a void between light and darkness, nothingness if you will, but like, those are the Riku and Kairi blades. You don't know those people. Sora wielding these in double form in KH3? That's peak. Long overdue. The truest showcase of My Friends Are My Power. All I'm saying is Roxas needs an Axel and Xion set. I'm sure most of the votes for these blades come from the Roxas fanbase, but I hope you all can appreciate the things I chose to gush about with these 2. You all enjoy your dual-wielding nobody. He clearly just won the video. I'll gladly sit back and appreciate the Destiny Trio's achievement here. Congrats to Roxas, and especially Kairi. Your Keyblade is the most popular. Well, that took forever. Never gonna underestimate what Pat does ever again. Seriously, I enjoyed doing this, gathering the data and putting my thoughts to paper, but holy shit, the magnitude of this thing is just not what I expected. Pat did 3 of these? No wonder he never wants to do one again. Everyone go thank Pat, he deserves more love for these undertakings. Oh, and thank you for making it all the way through this. I haven't edited it together yet, but I'm sure it's going to be at least 2 hours at this point, probably more, so you're a real trooper for surviving my ramblings. If you want to thank me, like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill. Go check out all my friends too. I'm gonna take a nap.